Introduction to the Happy Life of Gou in Azeroth. Wu Wei and his family have traveled to the world of Azeroth and unexpectedly possess the superpower to become any profession, but they must first find a way to survive. What? Becoming a spellcaster requires qualifications. Isn't having hands enough? Our whole family is like this. You said you're embarking on a great adventure. So why bother? Isn't it good for your wife and children to warm up? Chapter 1. Just wanted to take the child camping. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's time to pay off the mortgage in a few days. Aren't you paying your salary? Sun Lan, who is slightly tall and about 1.65 meters tall, with a plain face, couldn't help but ask her husband Wu Wei. She tried to conceal her anxiety and urging, not wanting to bring pressure to Wu Wei. Alas! Wu Wei, who was 1.9 meters tall and had a round waist, couldn't help but sigh when his wife mentioned his salary. The accountant said that the payment will be made in 2 days, and I don't know how long it will take to set it up in 2 days. He is just an ordinary office worker, earning less than 5,000 yuan per month, and the company has already delayed his salary for 2 months. A man like him, who has children, a mortgage, and a full-time wife, doesn't have much savings in his daily life. When his salary is in arrears, it seems like even paying off the mortgage has become a problem. Sigh. When can workers take the lead? Watching half a lifetime pass by, Wu Wei actually understood a bit that there were 2 ways to stand out. Either to innovate, promote social progress, and become a certain family, otherwise, you'll have no skin, no face, and no conscience to feed the dog. If you don't choose either path, just focus on being a lifelong leak. If you want to earn more, you can only learn from an old scalper and sacrifice your health, time, and family, 996 or even 007. Sun Lan saw his headache and swallowed the words that were already on his lips. She originally wanted to tell Wu Wei that her son Wu Xing's art interest class was also being urged to renew. Forget it, let's wait until we come back from camping and have fun with our son first. Don't think too much, there must be a way to get to the front of the mountain. She casually changed the topic, don't forget to bring your food, don't just bring your knives, guns, and sticks. Upon hearing this, Wu Wei smiled apologetically and said, isn't it normal to bring some survival tools during camping? He is usually very active, such as folding knives, straight knives, multifunctional military knives, long sticks, shields, engineering shovels, firearms, flints, compasses, and so on. Last year, he even bought a composite bow. At this moment, I finally seized the opportunity to go to the wilderness, so why not bring it all with me for fun? Dad, Mom, why are you getting up so early? Their son Wu Xing walked out of the room rubbing his eyes and said to his parents discontentedly, they all woke me up. I finally slept in on the weekend. Wu Xingnian is only 8 years old, but his height is inherited from Wu Wei, approaching 1.4 meters. He looks at least 2 years older than his actual age. Don't sleep in, go wash up quickly. Let's set off right away, get to the Gou mountain early, and have some more fun. Wu Wei ignored Wu Xing's complaint. This trip was all for this kid, he's not even enthusiastic, how unreasonable. Today's children suffer from a severe lack of outdoor activities, especially after going to school, where they are not exposed to nature a few times a year. As he watched his child's skin turn whiter and his body weaken, he, as a father, was anxious in his eyes and couldn't even care about the tiredness of working overtime for 5 consecutive days. He took a leave of absence and took Wu Xing camping in the mountains for the entire weekend. Where's breakfast? Are you going to play hungry? Wu Xing exclaimed in surprise. Hurry up, my parents are going crazy. Eating on the way. After a flurry, the family finally got into a domestically produced SUV. Wu Wei drove the last stubbornness of this leak towards the Gou mountain. While driving, there was inexplicably heavy fog on the road, and the visibility gradually decreased to less than 10 meters. Wu Wei could only turn on the fog lights and double flashing, driving at a turtle speed. Looking at the inexplicable thick fog outside the car, the whole family couldn't help but feel a bit congested. Why did it suddenly get so foggy? Wu Xing complained, the car can't even run anymore. When will we be able to reach Gou Mountain? Wu Wei frowned tightly without answering, just focused on driving. After a while, the fog grew even stronger and the visibility became less than 5 meters. Sun Lan hesitated and said, will such a heavy fog affect camping? Why don't we stop going and go back? I finally came out, is it just because of a fog that I returned home? Wu Wei hesitated for a while and said unwillingly, this fog is unlikely to affect camping the next day. If you persist, maybe it will disperse in a while. But things didn't develop according to his ideas, and after a while, the fog grew even bigger. Nowadays, not to mention road markings and signs, even the road surface cannot be seen. I'll go, I don't know if it's just digging into a ditch. Wu Weihan got down and didn't dare to continue driving. He quickly stopped the car in place. He regretted it a bit. He should have listened to Sun Lan's suggestion just now and turned around to go home. Now it's good, I can't even move and can only get stuck in the car. The family looked at the thick fog that could not be melted around, their hearts becoming increasingly suppressed, and they always felt that something bad was about to happen. It's strange to say that they parked for more than 10 minutes and didn't even have a car that surpassed them. It seems like they are the only family left in the whole world. Wu Wei wanted to break through the frozen air in the car and turned on the radio, but all that came from the radio was meaningless rustling. Strange, today is not Tuesday, why can't I receive the broadcast? He took out his phone and was surprised to find that it also had no signal. It's broken, things are not right. Wu Wei dared not speak up for fear of scaring his wife and children, but he secretly made up his mind that if the fog didn't dissipate, he would go out and see what exactly happened. Sometimes things just don't go according to people's wishes. When you think they will get better, they insist on showing you bad things, but when you are ready to fight hard, they will inexplicably get better. Just as Wu Wei was planning to get off the car and explore, the fog unexpectedly dissipated like this. Before they had time to be happy, everything in front of them surprised them. The flat asphalt road has disappeared, surrounded by unfamiliar plants, the towering trees embraced by 10 people are everywhere, and even the trees embraced by 100 people are not uncommon. Flowers and plants fill every corner of the field of vision, with only unexpected colors. Without these flowers and plants, one cannot grow. This life is a magnificent and fantastical fairyland scene. Haven't my eyes blurred, have they? Sun Lan exclaimed in surprise, are these all true? Have you seen them, Wu Wei? Can you twist me quickly? Am I hallucinating? Wu Wei was also shocked and couldn't speak, so he didn't care about twisting Sun Lan. Crossing. These two words suddenly came to mind in his mind. The scene before him began to make him doubt whether he was still on Earth. Otherwise, why did he come here inexplicably when he was driving on a familiar road in his hometown? This is definitely a time travel. He carefully opened the car door and took a breath, feeling a refreshing fragrance that immediately hit his face, boosting his spirits. With just one breath, it seemed as if all the cells in his body had been nourished, as if they were constantly shouting. More, more. Air can breathe. He felt relieved and walked out of the car, looking around like a curious baby. Sun Lan and Wu Xing saw this and also got off the car. Old Wu, where have we been? Sun Lan naturally asked Wu as the driver. I think we've probably crossed over. As for where this is, I don't know, it doesn't look like Earth anyway. Traversing. It's not Earth. Wu Xing's eyes lit up. This is so cool. Does that mean I don't have to go to school anymore? Beautiful. Wu Wei and Sun Lan scolded in unison. After scolding their imaginative son, they exchanged a glance, but suddenly felt relieved. After crossing time, don't you have to pay off your mortgage? But they immediately let out a sigh of frustration and said, but the house is also gone. They looked at the unfamiliar environment around them and suddenly felt a mix of flavors. They couldn't accept the fact that they had traveled, and couldn't believe that their family and friends, familiar living environment, and convenient modern technology were all gone like this. Just as they were about to express their feelings, a black and yellow shadow suddenly approached them. What kind of thing? Wu Wei instinctively took a step back and fixed his gaze on a spider that was even bigger than the dining table. Damn it, let this thing take a bite and not die on the spot. Get back in the car. Wu Wei was startled and immediately burned himself, quickly calling his wife and children to take shelter. Looking at the spider's sharp knife like 8 feet, he thought to himself, I'm afraid the car glass can't stop this monster. Even the car's steel plate may not be able to stop it. We need to fight back. No matter whether we can fight or not, we must fight to the death, otherwise our whole family will die. Thinking of this, he reached out and pulled off an engineering shovel and a plastic steel small round shield from the car, and without hesitation, rushed towards the spider. Lao Wu, don't go. Dad, come back quickly. Upon seeing this scene, Sun Lan and Wu Xing immediately shouted in panic. But if the arrow is on the string, it has to be fired. Wu Wei can't even retreat. At this moment, he had only one thought. Spider feet are slender and must be relatively fragile. Beat spider feet. He deflected his shield away from a spider foot that was poking at him, and the engineer's shovel used all its strength to chop towards the joint of the other spider foot. With a height of 1.9 meters and a weight of 180 pounds, this engineering shovel made a piercing sound and slammed onto the spider's legs, almost splashing sparks. The spider was hit and let out a scream, almost tilting, but it seemed to be ignited with anger. Instead of retreating, it continued to pounce wildly, with all 4 legs piercing towards Wu Wei. Faced with 4 spider feet in different directions, Wu Wei couldn't stop them and didn't have time to retreat. He suddenly felt a chill in his heart and said, it's over. Spider, spider, I'm big and have a lot of meat. If you eat it, I'll leave. Let my wife and children go. But at this moment, a little starlight suddenly fell from the sky and hit the spider, burning it completely. The spider suddenly fell to the ground, its sharp sword-like feet no longer able to thrust at Wu Wei. The spectacle of starlight falling made Wu Wei, who had saved his life, immediately guessed that someone had saved him and quickly searched around. But on the hillside behind him, a tall figure was putting down his wooden staff. Wu Wei looked carefully and couldn't believe his eyes for a moment. This figure is 2 meters tall, with white-gray hair and beard, dressed in a light yellow robe, with dark purple skin resembling the night sky, long pointed ears, and half an inch bright eyes. It doesn't look like a human at all. How does this look like? A night elf. Have we traveled to Azeroth? That would be disastrous. In the ghost place of Azeroth, the Dark Titan planned to destroy the world. The ancient god of Kezelufing wanted to break free from imprisonment and guard the crazy death of the dragon, human, orc, elf, dwarf, undead, troll, Tyrande. All races compete for dominance. Mages, sorcerers, priests, paladins, druids, shamans. Call for wind and rain. How should I live with my own family wandering here? %UN #UN%. The creature, suspected to be a night elf, suddenly shouted to Wu Wei in a strange language. Seeing Wu Wei's incomprehensible expression on his face, he changed his language and said. At #UN%. Seeing that Wu Wei still didn't understand, the creature stared at him with a scrutinizing gaze and slowly walked towards him. At this moment, Sun Lan and Wu Xing in the car were already frightened. What kind of monster is this? It looks like a person from a computer game. The humanoid creature suspected of being a night elf walked up to Wu Wei and looked up and down, as if trying to see through him. Staring at a magical creature that seemed to emerge from a fantasy story, Wu Wei was nervous and dared not move. This creature glanced at Wu Wei a few times and then spun around the car, touching it while spinning. Wu Wei carefully discovered that this creature also has 5 fingers, except for a larger one with a slightly pointed nail. The rest are similar to humans. After visiting the car, this creature, suspected to be a night elf, said something to Wu Wei. Seeing Wu Wei's bewildered expression, it waved at him and took the lead in walking in a direction. Sun Lan quietly opened the car door and got off the car, asking Wu Wei, "What do you mean?" "He asked us to follow him. What should we do?" After thinking for a moment, Wu Wei looked up and said, "Follow him. There's probably a lot of danger in this forest. Anyway, we can't stay here. If this person wants to harm us, as long as they didn't act just now, we might have been dismembered by spiders. There's no need to beat around the bush like this. It's not easy to drive in the forest. Carry the necessary things on your back. Let's walk." So the family bravely followed the humanoid creature. Strange to say, there was no road in the dense forest, but that creature walked as if walking on flat ground, as if flowers, plants, and trees would give way for him. In contrast, the family can only struggle to trek amidst the embrace of grass and trees. Thanks to that creature stopping to wait for them from time to time, they wouldn't have been lost. Otherwise, they would have been trapped in this forest, which is really frustrating. After walking for about an hour, a humanoid creature resembling a night elf finally took them to a treehouse. The family looked at the treehouse and was momentarily stunned. On a giant tree embraced by about 20 people, there were doors and windows growing, and the hollow trunk became a natural room. From the outside, there are wooden stairs growing on the walls of the house leading to the second floor. What's even more surprising is that this tree is still alive. Standing in front of the treehouse, the creature pointed to the open space next to it. Wu Wei tentatively placed his luggage there, and the creature nodded and turned to enter the treehouse. The door of the treehouse was also closed. The family looked at each other, but they were all confused. What does this guy mean? Say you want to harm us, come out and save us, then take us home, leave us here and don't worry about us running away. You said you were a guest, but you didn't even let us in at the door, so you gave us a piece of open space without any hospitality. It's really strange. The family pondered and couldn't figure it out, so they decided not to think and set up a tent on that empty piece of land. Is this also considered camping? Sun Lan asked with a strange expression as she set up her tent. Well, it's just a bit far from home, Wu Wei shrugged as he worked. And I can't go back anymore. Sun Lan looked at her husband and son and suddenly felt relieved, saying, "At least our family is still together. God didn't separate us." She hugged the 2 most important men in her life, and couldn't help but blush. This may be the most fortunate thing for the family after being alone in another world. "I don't know how the elderly at home are doing," Sun Lan suddenly said in a desolate voice. "We're suddenly gone, they'll be very anxious, right? I hope they can be more opened-up-minded." Wu Wei comforted, "At least they enjoy modern technology and retirement benefits on Earth, which is much stronger than us." He sighed in his heart and said, "We don't know if we can see tomorrow's sun yet." When they set up their tent, the sun was almost setting. We set off in the morning, and after a heavy fog, it turned out to be the afternoon. It seems that the time of the 2 worlds is not the same, causing us to miss a few hours. Wu Wei tried to analyze the current situation. At this moment, it's time for us to cook too. The little thing we ate in the car this morning is almost digested. Sun Lan had another thought. Anyway, the one in the tree house also saved our family's life. He can leave us here, we can't be impolite. Why don't we make some dinner and send it over? Maybe he will like it. It makes sense. Wu Wei nodded. No matter where you go, the quickest way to integrate is to treat someone to a meal, and it's time to show the world the heritage of the great foodie empire. They often carry convenient foods with them, such as sausages, luncheon meat, bread, instant noodles, compressed biscuits, and chocolate. There may also be some rice, noodles, vegetables, and fresh meat, I also brought some bottled water, tea, and peaches. So they started cooking a pot of rice, stir-fried 2 dishes, brewed a pot of tea, washed 2 of the peaches they brought, and went to the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to tidy up and take them to the treehouse. Dong dong. Wu Wei knocked on the door. With a creak, the door opened. Inside the door, creatures resembling night elves were looking at them with scrutinizing eyes. Wu Wei smiled and presented the food to him, making a gesture of eating with his hand towards his mouth. With a flick of his brain, he said, "These are the things that Mixie Mixie is working on." After speaking, he blushed with embarrassment and wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl in. Wu Xing moved aside with disdain, looking as if he didn't recognize his father. Sun Lan even kicked Wu Wei and said, "Where are you treating Xiao Ri?" The creature suspected of being a night elf remained motionless. The two looked at each other, and Sun Lan asked, "Will he suspect that we poisoned him?" "Don't you think so?" Wu Wei was shocked. "This is going to treat us like bad people, and we have to die. Please shut up quickly." Unexpectedly, at this moment, this creature suspected of being a night elf suddenly picked up a peach and took a gentle bite. Sweet juice flowed into the mouth of this creature, causing his eyes to suddenly light up and his face to show a joyful expression. He nodded at Wu Wei and Sun Lan, gesturing for them to bring dinner into the room. "Ah!" He accepted it. Sun Lan said excitedly. Wu Wei was also as happy as a child who had just fed a monkey. "Yes, I accepted it. Willing to eat our food seems to be no big problem." After putting down their dinner, they politely bid farewell and returned to their tent to have dinner. After dinner, the family enjoyed the completely different night sky in a different world and couldn't fall asleep. Sun Lan couldn't help but ask Wu Wei, "Old Wu, what do you think will be waiting for us tomorrow?" Chapter 2. The Way of Nature. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I don't want to become a druid. Wu Xingchong's parents shouted, "I want to become a magician. A cool and omnipotent magician. Don't make a fuss." Wu Wei furrowed his brow. Fortunately, this kid was speaking Chinese, and the night elves couldn't understand him. In the society of night elves, magic is forbidden. You don't have to learn druids, but you can't talk about wizards anymore. At least not in Tahiti. You child, you don't know your fortune in the midst of it. Sun Lan said, "I really want to learn, but Hector Night Wind insisted that the druid way is not suitable for women. Women should learn the knowledge of hunters and ask me to consult the village patrol sentries. Your father has said it, this is a dangerous world. Ordinary people have no resistance against the extraordinary, with various monsters, bandits, cults emerging one after another, as well as demons, undead disasters, and ancient gods who have done all sorts of bad things. We need to quickly become extraordinary in order to have some self-protection power." Wu Xing struggled on his face, but he eventually shook his head and said, "If I don't learn, I'll become a wizard." "Alright, if you don't learn, then don't learn." Wu Wei sighed, "But you can't be idle either. If you don't learn, you don't know what's right, if you don't know what's right, you can't stand it. You must learn all the Earth classics I wrote." It has been a month since they traveled together. The family's judgment at the time was not wrong. The person who saved them was indeed a night elf, an elderly druid named Hecate Night Wind. The world they traveled through was also Azeroth in the game World of Warcraft, and the place they traveled through was the world tree Tadal. Tedahir, the second world tree of Azeroth, was planted on an island near the Black Coast in the northwest corner of the Kalimdor continent after the Battle of Mount Hyjal. I don't know if the family was lucky or unlucky, but the Hector Night Wind had no intention of saving them. After all, the sudden appearance of the family at Tedahil could be considered an invasion. In the words of the Hector Night Breeze, "If it weren't for you risking your life to save your family and showing me your kind nature, I wouldn't have disturbed spiders to eat." This made Wu Wei's family burst into a cold sweat. It's so close, almost the whole family is neat. "So, how many years have passed since the Battle of Mount Hyjal? Wu Wei no longer hesitated about the old Hecate's desperate attempt to determine the current time through indirect investigation. This tree is so big, the capital of Darnassus, the night elf, only occupies a small part of its crown. The most important thing, of course, is time. Azeroth is plagued by various natural and man-made disasters, and without knowing time, one cannot rely on prior knowledge to avoid them. Are you talking about the Battle of Mount Hyjal and Tedahir? Hector Nightwind's face showed a nostalgic expression. Those scenes seem like yesterday. But in the blink of an eye, it's only been over a year. My Nima. 1 year. Wu Wei looked shocked and said, is it this big in just 1 year? I believe in the tree crown, the mountains, the valleys, and the ecological environment even if you tell me it will last for 100,000 years. No, it didn't take Tadahir a year to grow. Oh, it startled me. I just said, how could a world tree that can carry a city grow in just 1 year? She only used 10 days. Wu Wei was choked for a moment and couldn't say a word. 10 days so long. Is it even more outrageous? Okay. The magic world of Dog Day. He has some knowledge about the history of Azeroth. If the game materials are correct, it should have been 22 years since Tedahir planted it. Now, more than a year has passed since then, and now it is likely to be the Dark Gate for 23 years. In fact, Wu Wei is very fortunate that his family can land in Tedahir. This is the World Tree. For most of Azeroth's life, this tree is just an ethereal legend. Not to mention living above, at first glance it's all accumulated virtues from our ancestors. The kind of person who boasts for a lifetime. Its branches and leaves are treasures sought after by the world. I heard that the night elves gained immortality because of the World Tree. Since their family started living on the World Tree, their bodies have improved at a visible speed to the naked eye. Wu Wei believes that their family may also be able to achieve longevity as a result. This is simply a blessing from heaven. It's really worth crossing a time. Whenever I think of this, Wu Wei's heart is filled with passion. Of course, they didn't never think about crossing back to Earth, but they also knew how foolish this idea was. People often say about time travel, but who really has encountered it? The probability of crossing this route is probably thousands of times lower than winning the lottery. Wearing it once is rare in the world. Who can wear it again? Besides, it's impossible for a person to step into the same river twice. How could it happen to cross back into the modern Earth? Wearing it again, who knows where the hell it will go? Maybe the situation is not as good as Azeroth. So, they also breathed a sigh of relief when they returned home, and once they arrived, they settled in. During this month, they have been striving to integrate into the society of the Night Elves, not only adapting to a new life, but also successfully learning the Elven and common languages of Azeroth. Actually, I always think you are more incredible than the World Tree. Hector Nightwind said, what race are you? How could you have such a fast learning speed? I learned Elven language in half a month, and then learned common language in half a month. It's like a monster. The Hecate Night Breeze has accepted these 3 extraterrestrial visitors and has gained a preliminary understanding of Earth. Azeroth's extraterrestrial visitors should not be too many. Although they are common, they are not common, but when it comes to rarity, they are not uncommon. But he is always full of misunderstandings about the race and talents of the family. We are just ordinary races on Earth. Wu Wei smiled and said, before coming here, we didn't have this learning ability. Perhaps we were blessed when we arrived. Upon hearing these words, Hector Nightbreeze pondered and said, blessed. That's not the treatment of an ordinary person. In fact, the abnormality of a family is not just their strong learning ability. Their memory is also far beyond that of ordinary people. The knowledge and experiences that have been learned, as long as you think about them carefully, you can basically remember them. Considering that Wu Xing is only 8 years old, Wu Wei and Sun Lan even wrote down some of the books they had read to prevent their son from becoming an illiterate person with an empty mind. Wu Wei even silently wrote the Book of Changes, the Book of Documents, the Book of Songs, the Tao Te Ching, Zhuangzi, the Analects, and the Diamond Sutra, as extracurricular reading materials for Wu Xing. Culture is the foundation of a person. The child is still young, even if he will never return to Earth. Wu Wei does not want to cultivate the child into a monster with a heart full of love and yellow skin. Wu Xing said in despair, "I want to run away from home." In addition to strong learning and memory, Wu Wei speculates that they may also have an extra affinity for various extraordinary powers. That is to say, there is no threshold to becoming any extraordinary profession. Various energies and spells are undoubtedly an important part of this world, and the various extraordinary professions generated as a result are also the protagonists of the world. In the game, there are only 11 professions. Mage, Warlock, Pastor, Paladin, Shaman Priest, Druid, Warrior, Hunter, Thief, Death Knight, and Demon Hunter. Of course, the real Azeroth is not so simple. No matter how many extraordinary professions there are, the affinity for the corresponding extraordinary energy is definitely the most important. Just like the so-called qualifications of a foodie empire. No one would think that one can become a mage without perceiving arcane energy, right? No one would think that even without perceiving the elements, one can become a shaman, right? Even priests and knights have to perceive the holy light. The Death Knight must die first to gain the power of death. No means no, no means no. If you don't have the qualifications, you still want to become extraordinary. Worship demons and sell your souls as sorcerers. Otherwise, we can only act as war cranes, hunting cranes, and thief cranes. Although these three players in the game seem to be on par with other professions, can you think about it carefully? What is a warrior? The general is a warrior, and the soldier is also a warrior. Almost exercising your body and using a knife is a warrior. What is a hunter? Isn't he just a hunter? Or are they archers in the army? Where are the thieves? Thief. Spy. Assassin. The mice in the sewer. So qualifications almost determine a person's fate. Wu Wei would speculate that his family's affinity for all energies is based on evidence. Because shortly after arriving in Azeroth, he discovered that he had a great talent for becoming a druid. He requested to follow the Hecate Night Wind to learn druid spells at that time. Azeroth is so dangerous, not extraordinary, just like ants. Regardless of whether the druid is strong or not, at least he is also extraordinary, isn't he? But the Hecate Night Wind mercilessly rejected him. Not everyone can become a druid. He chuckled lightly, as if mocking Wu Wei's delusions. Druids are servants of nature, so becoming a druid requires natural recognition. You are not even people in this world, how can nature recognize you? But Wu Wei only watched Hecate's Night Wind cast a few spells and felt the power of nature. Then he casually thought about it and cast the same druid spell. This is impossible. Hecate Night Wind seemed to have seen a ghost at the time, almost treating him as the illegitimate son of Cenarius. He is certainly not the illegitimate son of Cenarius. Because not only he, but also Wu Xing and Sun Lan have the talent to become druids. How could it be so coincidental that three illegitimate sons of Cenarius suddenly appeared? The Earth is so far away, not to mention Cenarius, even the Titans are beyond reach. Okay. Besides, Cenarius's children are all half humans and half beasts. Not to mention that shortly after, Sun Lan showed extremely strong shooting talent, like a natural hunter. So Wu Wei believes that their affinity for the power of nature is not that they can only be attracted to it, but that they only come into contact with it. Their family is all talented. It was this conclusion that prompted Wu Xing to give up becoming a druid and instead pursue becoming a more magical magician. After Wu Wei demonstrated his talent as a druid, Hecate Night Wind changed his attitude. Not only did they deliberately give birth to a treehouse for their family, allowing them to finally bid farewell to the predicament of living in a tent, but they also helped them drive their car to the treehouse. Their lives have also improved slightly with the help of the earth objects carried by cars. At the same time, the faint gaze of the Hecate night breeze on them disappeared, and they were allowed to freely wander around. Of course, one dare not go to faraway places, as there are too many dangers in the forest. A few days later, Wu Wei once again proposed to become a student of Hecate night breeze. Hecate night breeze thought for a moment and nodded in agreement, clearly indicating that he had already had this intention. Nature needs more guardians, and I hope you can bring a better future to Azeroth. Then you look up to me. I am just an ordinary person with a wife and children to support. Azeroth's future will not depend on me. Wu Wei said with a bitter smile. He is a social animal that has traveled across the earth, how can he influence the world? Moreover, the fate of Azeroth's future is unpredictable, with heroes from all walks of life taking turns to appear. The gates of darkness open, and the burning legion approaches again and again. Even the earth must undergo another great fission after the ancient collapse of heaven and earth. He must take his family far away. Being able to start over in a new world and fortunate enough to become an arrogant spellcaster, this time, I must ensure that my wife and children have a good life. Wu Wei secretly made up his mind, stay away from all those bullshit things. I want to make money and live a happy life. In the following days, Wu Wei gradually improved on the path of druids and quickly learned 12 druid spells, including summoning starfire, summoning moonlight, summoning natural fury, summoning elven fire, thorn technique, plant growth, entangling roots and beads, pacifying animals, rejuvenation technique, healing touch, healing, and removing curses, all of which drained Hecate's night wind. Summoning starfire, moonlight, and natural fury are spells that harm enemies. Summoning the elf fire can erode the enemy's armor and leave them nowhere to hide. Thorn technique uses the power of nature to form protective energy and counterattack attackers. Inducing plants can control plant growth. Entanglement of roots is an advanced application of plant growth, which can stimulate the growth of tree roots and bind enemies. Pacifying animals can eliminate their hostility. Rejuvenation technique nourishes the target with vitality in the natural environment, allowing them to slowly recover from injuries. The therapeutic touch can promote rapid self-healing by touching the target. Healing directly enriches the power of life in the natural environment, allowing the target to heal instantly. Removing curses can use the power of nature to remove curses from injured individuals. These skills are not exactly the same as in the game, Wu Wei speculates, which may be because Azeroth is in the real world and cannot be fabricated like in the game. After another week, Hector Nightwind saw his rapid progress and began teaching him the secret of transforming into a beast. Hector Nightwind looked serious and said, "The ability to transform is a hallmark of druids. Ordinary druids usually have 1 to 2 forms, elite druids often have 3 to 4 forms, and druids with 5 or more forms are already rare and can be called masters. There are 2 ways to learn shapeshifting. One way is to search for the desired beast in the wild, either an ordinary beast or an elite that surpasses its kind. After determining the target, observe and imitate it, spend time with it day and night, and understand all the secrets of the beast from mind to body. When the soul resonates with it, you can try to imitate it with your soul until a part of your soul becomes the appearance of this beast, and the corresponding transformation spell is considered successful. The second approach is very special, and the transformation technique obtained through this approach is also particularly powerful. This way is to enter the Emerald Dream and find the powerful wilderness demigod, Black Panther demigod Asaman, Giant Bear demigod Yusak, Raven demigod Avina. No one knows how many demigods there are in this world, but as long as one of them acknowledges, they can be granted a demigod-level transformation spell and become the corresponding demigod image. So, today I'm going to take you into the Emerald Dream and see if you're lucky enough to be selected by a demigod. It doesn't matter if you're not selected, I'll take you to the wilderness to search for ordinary beasts in time, understand all the secrets from the heart to the body. Using the soul to imitate. Does it mean to obtain all the information about the learning object's genes and soul, and then build a model in one's own soul? After listening to Hector's lengthy discourse on the night breeze, Wu Wei, who had a solid understanding of the earth, immediately grasped the key points. Seeing Wu Wei's realization in his eyes, Hector Night Wind nodded silently and said, "If you're ready, close your eyes and let your mind go." Wu Wei obediently closed his eyes, and Hecate waved at him. Wu Wei suddenly felt a wave of drowsiness and fell asleep. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a wild jungle. This seems to be somewhere in reality, yet completely different, as if it was the initial appearance that had never been influenced by civilization. The Emerald Dream is the blueprint for Titan's design of Azeroth, and it is also the original appearance of Azeroth. A voice suddenly sounded, and Wu Wei was startled. He turned his head and saw that it was Hecate. "This place is really beautiful." Wu Wei looked to the side, where a fish was swimming in the air. "But it's a bit strange. This is a dream." Hector smiled and said, "It's not uncommon for anything to happen. But when the dreamer wakes up, everything will return to its original state." Seeing Wu Wei still admiring those dreams, Hector Night Breeze urged, "In the future, you will have more opportunities to visit here. Let's start now as soon as possible. If we delay too much time, your family will be anxious. Yusak or Ashaman, call them and see who will respond." Before Wu Wei could figure out who to call out, a raven flew over and looked at him with jewel-like eyes. "Nature favors, it's a Vina." Hector Night Breeze quickly saluted, "Your luck is really good. You even ran into a Vina before you started calling out. I've always wanted to acquire the ability to fly, but a Vina has never responded to me." The crow turned a blind eye to the bowing Hecate Night Breeze and still only stared at Wu Wei. Hecate stepped down in disappointment, knowing that the demigod Avina seemed to have come for Wu Wei. Unexpectedly, another black panther, a grey wolf, a giant bear, and a wild boar rushed over and stared at Wu Wei with their eyes. "Oh my god, it's Asaman, Godlin, Yusak, and Igamagan. What's going on? Why are so many wilderness demigods appearing at the same time?" Hecate Night Breeze feels like his brain is a bit lacking. Another sea lion appeared swimming in the air, followed by a sea turtle. Aquisip. Totora. Hecate's Night Breeze is now numb. Is Wu Wei the illegitimate son of Cenarius? But just then, white light appeared in the distance, and a huge white deer slowly walked over. Malone. It's Malone. The father of Cenarius. The husband of the goddess Elun. He's not dead yet. His soul is still in the Emerald Dream. The Night Breeze of Hecate exclaimed in surprise. The white deer turned its gaze to the Hector Night Wind, who immediately kept his gaze fixed and left the Emerald Dream in a daze. Wu Wei looked at the various animals surrounding him. More precisely, the demigods. And didn't know what to do for a moment. Do they want to destroy me as an invader because I am from Earth? You're here. Malone looked at Wu Wei as if she was looking at an old friend. Do we know each other? Wu Wei asked in surprise. Malone shook her head and said, Alien, your soul is so pure and powerful, shining with a golden light. You will become an important guardian of nature in the future. If you are willing, you can learn from any of us. How embarrassing. Wu Wei's eyes lit up and he said, haha. Is this the treatment of time travel? Seeing all the demigods looking serious, Wu Wei picked them up and said, then I won't be polite. Let me choose one. Leopard form and bear form are necessary. Raven form is also necessary. Wolf form seems too dangerous, pass. Turtle form and wild boar form are too shameful, pass. Sea lion form is necessary, so the waterway is empty. Deer form is also necessary. I remember deer's running ability is not on par with horses, so it's good to use it for driving. And this white deer seems to have the highest status. Malone, I haven't heard of this name before. Forget it, I don't want to. After determining what form he wanted, Wu Wei spoke to the demigods and said, I hope to receive the guidance of the 5 gods, Wusuk, Avina, Ashaman, Aquisip, and Malone. So the other demigods gave Wu Wei a deep glance and had no choice but to retreat. Malone and the 5 demigods began to lean towards Wu Wei. Firstly, there was Malone. He exchanged a glance with Wu Wei, and a memory carrying the mystery of Malone's body rushed into Wu Wei's mind. Muscles, bones, organs, skin, eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and even antlers. After having a plan in mind, Wu Wei attempted to squeeze out a portion of his soul, which was still in human form, like squeezing out a tentacle from a rubber clay that had already been molded into a human form, attempting to shape this soul into a white deer connected to the human form according to Malone's appearance. But no matter what, he can't do it. Either the white deer is not formed, or the human form is on the brink of collapse. After trying multiple times, he suddenly remembered a sentence from the Diamond Sutra. All appearances are illusory. If you see that all appearances are not appearances, then you will see the Tathagata. Wu Wei suddenly realized that since all appearances are illusory, why is my soul like a human appearance? Wuxiang is the highest realm. Throughout his life, this heart's soul suddenly transformed into a chaotic state, devoid of form and self. Only a small portion became humanoid, as if a person had grown out of the chaotic universe, whose face was exactly like that of Wu Wei. Wu Wei's heart moved, and a white deer suddenly appeared next to the human figure. Wu Wei is overjoyed. It's just that simple, it's done. Learning the transformation technique of white deer from Malone, Wu Wei continued to work hard and began to learn the form of Black Panther from Ashaman. Next up are Yusak, Avina, Aquisip giant bears, ravens, sea lions. After learning 5 complete transformation techniques, Wu Wei gradually began to lose his sight. This is the body structure of the 5 demigods. The vast and complex information is like smoke. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? He blacked out before his eyes and passed out in a flash. Wu Wei. Wake up quickly, a voice called out to him. Old Wu, wake up quickly. A familiar female voice called him again. Dad. Wake up and take a look at me. Dad. Are you calling me? It's just a form of learning. Why did this happen? The first voice continued, I was kicked out of the Emerald Dream, not to mention, and even fell into a coma. Wu Wei gradually regained some consciousness. Who am I? Where am I? He began to continue contemplating the ultimate challenge of life. After a long time, the slurry in his mind finally calmed down a bit, and then he remembered what had happened. I am Wu Wei, an earthling, Sunland's husband, Wu Xing's father. I have traveled to Azeroth and was just learning about Druid transformation Mudan. Why didn't Hecate tell me that learning to deform would cause such a heavy burden on the brain? If I had known earlier, I would have come one by one. He slowly opened his eyes and 3 people, Sun Lan, Wu Xing, and Hecate, appeared in front of him. Wake up. Finally wake up. Sun Lan exclaimed excitedly. Dad is awake. Wu Xing cried happily. Wu Wei, how are you? What happened to you in the Emerald Dream? Hecate asked with concern. You still ask me, don't you know what happened? Wu Wei still felt as if his soul had left his body. What do I know? Hector said innocently, I just sent you into the Emerald Dream normally. As for what happened to you inside, how would I know if you stayed outside? This. Hector didn't enter the Emerald Dream. Did the Hector I saw in the Emerald Dream come from my dream? Wu Wei immediately denied his idea, stating that he couldn't fake his entire 5 transformations. Just now, he didn't think too much about it in the Emerald Dream. It was only then that he realized that there were 5 types of transformation techniques, and he suddenly became a master of transformation techniques. Regarding the memories of the Hector Night Breeze, he remembered the moment Malone looked at the Hector Night Breeze. The memory at that time was erased, right? Is it because so many demigods gather together, which is too shocking and shocking. Is there any secret I don't know? The situation was so strange that Wu Wei suddenly dared not reveal his own experience. A big tree catches the wind, it's better to keep a low profile. It's nothing, I just learned 2 types of transformation techniques at once. The tens of thousands of years of life history of the demigods almost drove me crazy. Wu Wei decided to conceal 3 forms. What, learn 2 types of shape-shifting techniques from a demigod at once? Hector exclaimed, how could that be? It's not easy to win the favor of a demigod, how could you get 2? Do demigods want face? Tell me quickly, which 2 types of shape-shifting techniques did you learn? Okay, I've said too much, but it's too late to change my tune at this moment. Wu Wei can only say, I've learned the metamorphosis technique. Leopard and metamorphosis bear. Ashaman and Yusok. How could they appear together? Hector looked puzzled. Wu Wei didn't want to continue discussing this issue to avoid wasting words. At this point, he felt better and wanted to fully experience his transformation technique. After returning from the Emerald Dream, he always felt that the whole world was somewhat different, with a vague sense of detachment, as if he was both in this world and not in this world. It feels like this world is just a pond, but I am a person standing on the shore, reaching out with one hand into the pond. Perhaps I can try changing hands. His heart moved, and the humanoid part of his soul retreated, while the leopard part sank into the present world. In the blink of an eye, an agile black panther replaced him and stood in place. I've become a leopard. The shouting turned into waves of panther roars, and he was surprised to lift his front paws to carefully observe. He extended his sharp claws in and out, and tried to jump and run after reaching out. The world of leopards is different from that of humans, not only because the perspective is much lower, but also because the field of view is farther. Even some dimly lit areas can be seen with great precision. Wu Wei once again put the bear part of his soul into this world, instantly transforming into a giant bear. The boundless power filled his body, making him fearless. Countless odors that he had never smelled before flooded into his nostrils. Soil, flowers, leaves. There was a rabbit about 300 meters ahead, and a little deer about 500 meters behind on the right. This is not much worse than a dog's nose, is it? But he didn't know that a bear's sense of smell is 6 times that of a dog. Seeing his novel appearance, Hector Nightbreeze couldn't help but worry about his 2 demigod questions, showing a pleased smile. Both of these forms brought extraordinary feelings to Wu Wei. Wu Wei was willing to try the other 3 forms, but considering that the Hecate Night Wind was right beside him, he had to give up. In the following days, Wu Wei, who had grown in strength as a formal druid, began to explore further places. He, along with Sun Lan, Wu Xing, and even led by the Hecate Night Breeze, went to the nearest night elf town of Dolinar. The night elves of Dolinar were curious about these exotic races, and because of Wu Wei's druid identity, they quickly accepted him. Wu Wei will use his druid abilities to provide assistance to the townspeople and often receive rewards to earn some small money. He even found a job collecting herbs with an alchemist, collecting herbs while exchanging the collected herbs and most of his own money for learning alchemy. After all, he still has a family to support. Learning professional skills to earn money is the long-term way. In the game, players also have to learn professional skills to support themselves, right? The real Azeroth is not limited to 11 professional skills, including mining, forging, engineering, medicinal extraction, alchemy, skinning, leather making, tailoring, enchantment, inscriptions, and jewelry processing. But Wu Wei had already analyzed. Mining is a rough job, dirty and tiring, and the real world has never heard that being a miner can make a fortune. Picking medicine and peeling may also be similar to mining. Forging is not like any skill that can lead to wealth, it's just a blacksmith. The income is at most moderately prosperous, and the skill of forging iron, no matter how strong an ordinary person is, cannot be stronger than a dwarf. It's not very interesting. Leather making, tailoring, and jewelry processing may also be similar to forging, engineering can be learned, as one is already engaged in technical work. With ancestral dexterity and the ability to carry knowledge about the earth, there are likely to be additional benefits, and the future is simply bright. My wife, Sun Lan, is highly likely to take the path of a hunter. If she could process firearms from Earth, wouldn't it be much stronger than bows and arrows? However, there is no opportunity to learn engineering at Tetahir, and in the game, this skill requires finding dwarves or goblins. Of course, engineering has always been a job of burning money rather than making money, and now he doesn't have the capital to pursue it. With this calculation, only 3 professional skills that have always been known for making money are left: enchantment, inscriptions, and alchemy. Wu Wei really wished he could learn them all. But this is not in the game, you can learn if you want. Wu Wei felt that enchantment and inscriptions were probably inseparable from the discipline of magic, and perhaps it was the exclusive profession of mages, so he had to choose alchemy. Producing potions and selling them for money is delicious. Wu Wei also had Sun Lan get involved with the patrol sentries in the town by running errands, and then used the remaining money to train the sentries on Sun Lan's skills as a female hunter. Sun Lan's learning ability is as strong as Wu Wei's. In less than a month, she learned a complete set of female hunter skills, including taming pets, setting traps, tracking, and shooting. Her physical fitness also greatly improved, and she could easily leap up trees or cross forests for off-road driving. The composite bow brought by Wu Wei from Earth also came in handy. Their family's recipe also included some meat, and their prey's fur could be sold for money to support their families. But just as Wu Wei was desperately learning alchemy, 2 strangely dressed night elves suddenly came knocking on him. These 2 people have iron helmets covering their faces, cloaks covering their bodies, and hold large circular blades. Their gender can only be determined by their voices. As soon as they appeared, they took Sun Lan and Wu Xing hostage and launched an attack on Wu Wei. Wu Wei was shocked and was about to transform into a rebellion when the voice of Hecate's night breeze suddenly sounded, "Don't take action, they are guardians." This is all a misunderstanding, I will explain it clearly. Chapter 3. Game begins. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The family was escorted by guards into a watchtower, which, unlike other night elf buildings, used more stone than wood as the building material. Even the decorative patterns on the walls were replaced by thorns instead of vines. Put them in a cage at will, and a caretaker said as if there was no one around. Stay here for now, set off early tomorrow morning, and send these 3 demons from other worlds to prison. What about that old druid? Asked the other guard. It seems that he is deeply involved with these 3 extraterrestrial demons. He even claimed to seek justice from the council just now. Why don't we arrest him too? Don't bother with him, that's just an old fool, the first guardian sneered. Old Wu, why did they catch us? What mistake did we make? Sun Lan asked Wu Wei in Chinese in horror. At this moment, Wu Wei was also puzzled and said, I don't know either. Dad, aren't they going to eat us? Wu Xing suddenly asked with concern. No, the night elves don't eat people, Wu Wei comforted. No, I said. Why do you want to catch us? Wu Wei mustered up the courage and asked, we're not some kind of demon from another world. We haven't done anything bad either. Isn't it a demon from another world? Azeroth doesn't have a race like you, a guardian sneered. Although we come from a different world, we are good people. Wu Wei anxiously defended himself. A mouth full of lies is the devil's specialty, another guardian sneered. I wipe it, that's not clear, is it? Wu Wei was so angry that his 7 orifices were filled with smoke. Why are you doing this? Sun Lan said, no matter what you accuse us of, you have to come up with evidence. It's ridiculous to accuse us out of thin air without evidence. It's obvious that your existence is evidence, said one of the guards. When I return to prison, I will interrogate you well and figure out how you foreign demons infiltrated Tetahir, and what hidden evil intentions you have. Are you crazy? Sun Lan exclaimed incredulously, "Open your eyes and take a closer look. We are ordinary people who accidentally wandered here. There is still a child here. Who would do anything wrong with his wife and 8-year-old child?" Wu Xingzhen grabbed Sun Lan's clothes with a face full of fear, hiding behind his mother and not daring to say a word. "Devil's will." A guardian gave the answer without surprise. Sun Lan almost lost her breath. "When we first arrived, we had no ability at all. Compared to you guys, we were just weak grass. How could we cause destruction?" Wu Wei attempted to indirectly deny the charges. "That's where your cunning lies," replied another guardian. "Oh my goodness. These are just 2 stones that won't allow oil and salt to enter." The family glanced at each other and saw despair in each other's eyes. They sat down obediently and began whispering softly in Chinese. "What should we do, Lao Wu? These people make me scared. I think if we were to be caught like this, we would definitely end up in a miserable situation." Sun Lan said anxiously. "Dad, I'm scared." Wu Xing's voice trembled, almost crying. "I think they just want to eat me, maybe they changed the recipe. This child is scared. We need to find a way to escape." Wu Wei frowned and his face remained calm, with unease and anger mixed in his face. "I remember these people. They are the law enforcement officers of the Night Elves, with the leader named May of the Watchmen. They were originally prison guards guarding Illidan, but later devoted themselves to investigating and capturing the betrayal and corruption of the Night Elves. Since Tyrande killed their colleagues and released Illidan, they have become even darker and colder. They don't usually appear to be visible, as if they don't exist at all, but every move means that some people will suffer. Illidan was imprisoned by them for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Wu Xing exclaimed in surprise. Life is just a few decades long. If we lock them up, wouldn't it be better to just wait for them to become bones? Sun Lanyue thought to himself, becoming more and more frightened. "We don't mind, what about the child? He's only 8 years old, and before life starts, he's just locked up in prison until death." After speaking, he stood up excitedly and smashed the iron cage, shouting angrily at the 2 guards, "Let us out. You 2 demons." Wu Xing was frightened by his mother's excited expression and burst into tears. The 2 guards laughed proudly and said, "The demon has revealed its true form." Wu Wei quickly grabbed Sun Lan and sat down, hugging them tightly. "Don't do this. Give me some time, I will think of a way to take you out." He gasped and looked around, trying to find a loophole that would allow them to escape. "How should we escape?" "Deformation. Manipulating plants. Use magic to break open the lock." Wu Wei regretted not finding a thief to learn some tricks such as unlocking and sneaking. At the same time, the old druid Hecate Nightbreeze was riding the Nightblade Leopard towards Darnassus. He walked through the quaint city gate, disregarding the exquisite ponds and gardens, and headed straight to the Cenarian Council. Fandar. Hector Nightbreeze approached the great druid Fandar Deer Helmet directly. "I need to talk to you alone, it's very important." Vandal waved his deer helmet and asked others to temporarily leave the office. The Hector Night Wind once fought alongside the Vandal helmet in the Battle of Quicksand, forming a deep friendship. It was also an important supporter of the Vandal helmet in the Cenarian Council, so the Vandal helmet deserves this face. To make a long story short, I still have a lot of things to do. Hecate Nightbreeze then recounted the whole story to Vandal Deer Helmet in its original form. Guests from another world. Why do they appear directly at Tetahir? Fandar Deer Helmet was surprised in his heart. Tetahir was planted by him, which is related to his reputation among the Night Elves and cannot be lost. How could this Hector be so foolish as to leave them behind without permission? They don't know why they're here. And it's not important, what's important is that these people seem to be blessed. They never forget, they learn everything very quickly. I've never seen such a scene before. Can you imagine? A person becomes a mature druid in just 1 month. Have you taught them the way of druids? Vandal's helmet was furious upon hearing this. How could this Hector be so hasty? Anyone who becomes a druid must obtain permission from the Cenarian Council. It's just that man, his name is Wu Wei, and I'll take him as my disciple. Hecate Night Wind felt a bit guilty and immediately whispered his defense. Vandal Deer Helmet looked at him with hatred, too lazy to scold him again, and began to ponder the details of the matter. Becoming a formal druid in a month. Do you think he received blessings? Whose blessings? I don't know, but he learns all kinds of natural spells at a glance. I think the blesser must be related to life and nature, maybe it's Isra, or Elun, or maybe it's Takeoff. The Hecate Night Wind spoke confidently. You think, their family fell from the sky, and Azeroth is so big, why did they fall on Takeoff, and it's just near me? And according to what they say, there are no spellcasters in their world. They have been mortal since birth, why did they suddenly have such an incredible natural talent after arriving in Azeroth? This is not a blessing. What is it? Perhaps it's someone who thinks that blessings are. After Mount Hyjal, our night elves are in a state of decline and need to be saved by the heavenly descendants. Vandal Deer Helmet gave Hecate the Night Breeze a white glance. To say that he received the blessing of some existence, he believed that if such an outsider was needed to save the Night Elves, it would be pure nonsense. How could the Night Elves need to be saved as they are so powerful? They are one of the oldest races in the world, guarding the Well of Eternity in ancient times and inventing magic for this world. Their advanced civilization and strength dominate the entire Azeroth. Even after the first attempt to stop the Burning Legion from invading, they gained immortality. That's eternal life. Azeroth is the only immortal race. Although they lost their immortality after the Battle of Mount Hyjal, they still have a lifespan of thousands of years. Azeroth's lifespan can exceed theirs, only the Guardian Dragon. Counting them in detail, it is not an exaggeration to say that they are the darling of the world. In contrast, the other races of Azeroth are just younger brothers in front of them. So, how could such a powerful night elf need someone else to save it? Even if it needs to be saved, it must be my Vandal Deer Helmet. You've thought too much. Vandal Deer Helmet said disdainfully. However, if their learning ability is truly what Hector Night Breeze said, it must be taken seriously. I cannot let him affect my plan. Let's talk about these people from other worlds. He hit the nail on the head of the question. What is their nature? Are they upright or evil? Are they kind or cruel? Are they gentle or irritable? Are they generous or greedy? They are not bad people. Hector Night Wind knew his answer was crucial and immediately became nervous. Gentle and generous, full of kindness towards others, with a heart of justice. 3 kind-hearted extraterrestrial people, a couple with a young child, accidentally entered Takeoff, but the man among them has become a druid and has extraordinary talents in the path of nature. It's not a big problem. Vandal Deer Helmet's heart lit up with a flash of inspiration. These 3 extraterrestrial beings have no understanding of this world, like white paper. Perhaps they can do something for me that others dare not do. As long as I take them in and provide shelter, they will be obedient. If their talents are as Hector said, then I will soon have 3 powerful and independent subordinates available. I know what to do, Vandal's Deer Helmet said to the Hector Night Wind. You go back and wait for the news. No. Hector Night Breeze refused. I'll just wait here. This matter can't be delayed. If it's delayed for a day or 2, maybe those 2 guards will send them to the Deep Hole prison. Even worse, they might be executed directly. All right then, said Vandal Deer Helmet, I'll go find Tyrande now. The Temple of the Moon God Elun is located at the southernmost point of Darnassus and is the tallest building in the entire Darnassus. If we don't count those treehouses that are actually branches of the Takeoff tree. This temple is the largest temple in Elun, where the top priestesses gather to listen to the will of the Moon God and proclaim it to all believers of the Moon God. The electorate of the moon god Elun, the leader of the night elves, and the high-ranking priestess Tyrande's language style are naturally also here. Vandal Deer Helmet walked into the temple, and the towering statue of Elun in the center of the temple poured down the holy water filled with moonlight, holy and solemn. The priestesses cast wary and unfriendly gazes at him one after another. Vandal Deer Helmet didn't care at all. Ever since he publicly criticized the Tyrande language style for lacking leadership ability, the priestesses began to look at him with this kind of gaze, and he had long been accustomed to it. "What is your highness the great druid doing?" a priestess asked Vandal with a distant expression. "I'm looking for Tyrande. The high-ranking priestess is on the terrace on the second floor, please help yourself." After speaking, the priestess welcomed a worshipper who came to worship and left the Vandal Deer Helmet in place. Vandal Deer Helmet had no choice but to go to the second floor on his own. On the terrace on the second floor, the Tyrande Wind was conversing with a priestess. Seeing his arrival, the priestess turned around and left, leaving space for the two. "Do you have any good news for me, Your Excellency the Great Druid?" Tyrande said expressionlessly to Vandal's helmet, "Has the fury of Malfurion improved, your teacher, my husband? The druids of the council are doing their best to study the cause of the teacher's coma, and I believe they will come to a conclusion soon." Vandal Helmet said calmly, "I have something else to do here today." "Is the corruption of Takeoff visible?" asked the Telon German style. "No, I am ordering someone to investigate the corruption of Takeoff." Vandal Deer Helmet said slightly uneasy, "I came because of 3 aliens who mistakenly entered Takeoff and were arrested by the guards. They are a kind race, and one of them has become a formal druid. If we judge them just because they mistakenly entered Takeoff, it would be too cruel and damage the reputation of the good race of the Night Elves. So I hope that the High Priestess can persuade the guard force to hand them over to me for disposal. May of Shadow Song is not here, and the guards will not refuse the opinions from the temple. 3 people from another world. What's going on?" The Thai German Wind tightened in his heart. This doesn't sound like a small matter. What does Vandal Deer Helmet want to do? 3 extraterrestrial beings appeared directly at Takeoff and were discovered by the guards, who believed they were evil demons. I think this accusation is still open to debate. Who first discovered them? Have you figured out the reason why they appeared at Takeoff? Tyrande ignored Vandal's request to hand over the alien to the Cenarian Council and went to the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. She felt that this matter was related to the safety of all the Night Elves, and the Cenarian Council of the Druid was no longer qualified to handle it independently. Secondly, Malfurion fell into a coma, and the remaining members of the Cenarian Parliament may not be able to make the right decisions. Not long ago, they also allowed Vandal Deer Helmets to grow Takeoff. It's the Hecate night breeze. According to the people of the other world, they experienced a thick fog in their own world, and after the fog dissipated, they were already in Takeoff, replied Vandal's Deer Helmet. It's all hearsay. I think dealing with these 3 extraterrestrial beings exceeds the authority of the Cenarian Council. Tyrande made a decision in his language. We cannot assume that they are harmless solely based on the judgment of the Druids, nor can we assume that they are harmful solely based on the Guardians. If the Watchman Maiev is not present, these remaining Guardians will inevitably be too hasty. This. Vandal's Deer Helmet made a mistake, and this statement in Telon German style disrupted some of his plans. I will send sentinel troops to bring those people from other worlds here and convene a Grand Council to discuss how to deal with them, continued the Telon German style. The room for manipulation in the Grand Council is much smaller. Vandal Deer Helmet is somewhat dissatisfied. These are just 3 people from a different world who accidentally entered. I don't think it's necessary to convene a Grand Council to waste everyone's time. Vandal Deer Helmet exclaimed loudly, what are the 3 people from a different world like Takeoff now? Sartre has secretly taken root here. Originally, Your Highness the Great Druid knew that Sartre had infiltrated Takeoff. Tyrande's tone of voice was filled with dissatisfaction. That's it. We'll wait for the arrival of the alien to discuss everything else. Seeing that the determination of the Teal and German style has been made, the Van der Luck helmet can only reluctantly retreat. Chapter 4. Tyrande and Vandal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A group of sentries, guided by the Hecate night breeze, found Wu Wei's family. Wu Wei, who was studying how to escape, was immediately overjoyed and said, "Great, the teacher has sent someone to save us." Sun Lan and Wu Xing, who had been tormented by fear for half a day, almost burst into tears of joy. The following priestess originally wanted the guardian to leave, but the guardian refused to let Wu Wei's family out of her sight. "They are all evil demons, and to prevent them from harming the night elves, we will not relax our guard over them." The guardian exclaimed angrily, "The high priestess just released the demon Illidan, and we cannot trust her. This is a slap in the face." Wu Wei didn't expect to see this great play again. Of course, he also knew that he had better not laugh at Tyrande. Whether his family could be free or not would depend on Tyrande. If Tyrande couldn't withstand the guards, his family would be ruined. The priestess and sentry had no choice but to bring back Darnassus along with the guards. As soon as he arrived at Darnassus, Wu Wei saw a stern-looking male night elf blocking the queue and said, "Can you all let me talk to them alone?" The accompanying sentries and priestesses obediently dispersed, and even the guards walked away a few steps, choosing to monitor from a distance. "My name is Vandal Deer Helmet, and I am the Grand Druid of the Cenarian Council. I wonder if Hecate has mentioned me to you," the person introduced himself to Wu Wei. "So it's a big druid, no wonder he has such face. Wu flatters and delivers. My teacher introduced you to me, and he called you the greatest druid of all time. The night elves have the most leadership style, nobility, and hope for the revival of the night elves. My name is Wu Wei, and it's a great honor to meet you. This is my wife Sun Lan and son Wu Xing. Although I don't know why I alarmed Vandal, anyway, the family is still prisoners at this moment. It's definitely right to lick such a big shot first. Hector is ridiculous," Vandal said without any sense of guilt. He looked at Wu Xing inexplicably and said, "You're such an outstanding young man. As a father, you should treat him well." Wu Wei didn't know why Vandal brought up the topic of taking care of children, so he could only agree wholeheartedly. "Hector praised you as a genius who will be the future leader of the Cenarian Council. I have just stepped forward to protect your family, but don't think you can rest assured. The matter is not yet concluded. If you want complete safety, please cooperate with me well next. I hope you don't disappoint me in the future." After Vandal finished speaking, he turned around and left. Cooperate. Wu Wei was not a child and suddenly understood Vandal's intentions. Am I caught up in the political struggle of the Night Elves' top management? He couldn't help feeling a chill on his back. At this moment, Sun Lan asked in Chinese, "What does this person mean by saying something that is mindless?" "He is one of the two leaders of the Night Elves," Wu Wei explained. "As for those few words, they were just for the sake of the city's favor. It must be the teacher Hector who begged him for help. He was not interested in saving us, but suddenly he wanted to borrow us to achieve some purpose. Come to find us, just to let me follow him and cooperate with his actions. This matter is not a big deal. Our family has landed in this field, and it would be great if someone could help us. There is no room for nitpicking. But Vander's dear helmet is a pit. Just plotting to harm Malfurion is enough for him." Back then, Wu Wei took over the task of playing Warcraft with Vandal and helped him plant morning wheat. He could complete it repeatedly, and the rewards would increase later on. Finally, he found out that Vandal cursed Malfurion with these morning wheat. "Who is Malfurion?" Sun Lan asked curiously. "Who is Malfurion?" "He is the elector of the demigod Cenarius, the grandfather of all druids. Cenarius is the biggest and hardest support for the Night Elves. With Cenarius' support, Malfurion not only saved the Night Elves from fire and water several times, but all druids also chose him as their leader. Tyrande, the leader of the Night Elves, is still his wife. What good would be to provoke such a person? Besides, our family didn't do anything and didn't even have a bad idea. The so-called charges are just the black pot and dirty water spilled by the guards. A deep injustice deserves its share. Among the Night Elves, it's not just Vandal who can help us. At least Tyrande has an idea, otherwise she wouldn't let the priestesses and sentinel troops come to pick us up. So why do we need to board Vandal's broken ship? Moreover, if Vandar Deer Helmet wants to use us to achieve his goals, it is likely to offend Tyrande. He may not be able to protect us by then. Why bother following him? Is it difficult to choose between someone with ulterior motives and someone who may hold pure goodwill or fairness? We are not afraid of shadows tilting, so we must be casting for Tyrande. Next, the sentinel troops sent the family to the Moon Temple. The family only waited for a moment before receiving an audience from Tyrande. To the surprise of the family, Tyrande saw Wu Wei's family and a hint of surprise flashed on his face. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but ultimately remained silent, just looking at them with an inexplicable emotion in his eyes. Wu Wei was unaware of this, so he could only bow to Tyrande with his family and look back at her with calm eyes. Sun Lan's gaze towards Tyrande was full of vigilance, as Wu Xing was frightened all the way and intimidated by the magnificent magic of the Moon Temple, still looking timid. After a while, Tyrande finally spoke up. You must be the alien named Wu Wei. It's a strange name, is there anything particular about it? Wu Wei didn't expect Tyrande to be interested in his name, and all the prepared arguments were in vain. He could only start racking his brains to explain his name. Wu is my surname, which is the name of a place in our world. My ancestors once enjoyed this territory, so it is used as my surname. Wu is my name, meaning act. At the same time, in our language, the homophonic sound of my name connected together means not deliberate or not forced. Tyrande raised his eyebrows. It's really a unique custom, where the surname comes before the name and has a very stylish meaning. In your culture, is not deliberate highly respected? Yes, our culture emphasizes that everything should be done naturally and naturally. It is not encouraged to push things too hard or forcefully move heavy objects that we cannot bear. Wu Wei felt that this was an opportunity to leave a good impression on Tyrande, so he took advantage of the situation and began cultural exports. This is very in line with the way of nature. You became a druid in just 1 month, it must be related to this. Tyrande pondered. Your sharp eyes are like a torch. Wu Wei quickly took the opportunity to flatter. These two must be your wife and children. They should be called Sun Lan and Wu Xing. Tyrande nodded at Sun Lan and Wu Xing and said, do they have any particular names? Wu Wei's brain is running wildly. My son follows my surname, and his name means star, my wife's surname means humble, and her name means orchid, which is also blue. It's all so beautiful. Tyrande finally smiled. Can you tell me about your world? Our world has no magic, no monsters, no demons, gods, and foreign invaders. We have a history of tens of thousands of years, and although there is only one intelligent race in the whole world, it is divided into multiple types of civilizations and has rich cultures. Next, Wu Wei talked to Tyrande about Earth, but he didn't hide it. Anyway, the Night Elves couldn't find Earth, so it's good to find it. They can still use it to go home. Tyrande, however, lacked knowledge and technological interest in Earth, and instead showed great interest in philosophy and art. Thanks to Wu Wei's love for reading idle books and deep understanding of traditional culture, there was no coldness. After a conversation, Tyrande left satisfied and did not guarantee anything to Wu Wei, but Wu Wei knew that his family was already stable. Sun Lan also saw this and couldn't help but give Wu Wei a thumbs up. Old Wu, you really can boast. Look at how you've coaxed Tyrande. I'm telling the truth, okay? Who's trying to coax her? The next day, their family was allowed to visit Darnassus. Wu Wei had no idea what Tyrande was thinking, so he could only tour Darnassus with a confused expression on his face. The two guards insisted on following, staring at Wu Wei's family like thieves, and Wu Wei didn't mind either, treating them all as free bodyguards. The architectural layout of Darnassus can be divided into two parts. The western half is slightly larger than the eastern half. The western half of the southern part is the towering Moon Temple, in the middle is a beautiful temple garden, and to the west of the temple garden is a portal to the outside world. The Cenarian Council was established on a giant tree to the north. The eastern half and southern part are markets, which are different from other places. Not only are the shops sparse and the environment elegant, but buyers and sellers are also gentle and polite, without any noise. Traveling around the world is also considered a spectacle. Zhongwei is a military camp, and the only city gate of Darnassus is directly to the east of the camp. Here, soldiers either practice routines, compete with dummies, or engage in actual combat. Shooters focus on shooting arrows, and military coaches teach martial arts. The entire team of soldiers practice formation. There are various processing workshops in the north, including iron smelting, textile, tailoring, armor making, weapon making, bow and arrow making, as well as enchanting, alchemy, and jewelry processing. The products produced here can not only be used by the Night Elves of Tatahir, but also exported to various countries of the Alliance. It has to be said that the real Darnassus is much more beautiful than in the game. No matter which region, there are flowers that do not wither at all times and evergreen trees everywhere. The grey walls and blue tiles of the building are quaint and elegant. Whether it is the walls, eaves, or platform columns, they are all decorated with patterns of flowers, plants, and vines. There are also some mysterious runes that emit dim light, gentle streetlight plants, shimmering exotic flowers and plants, and rare birds and beasts that may be quiet or moving. All of these are overwhelming. The most beautiful one among them is undoubtedly the temple garden, with clear and charming streams and ponds. Pavilions, towers, and pavilions are arranged in a neat and orderly manner. It makes people linger and forget to leave. The unique appearance of the family and the close protective treatment of the guards caught their attention. More curious people came up to chat with them. They are open-minded and polite, and extremely friendly to their family. Some are full of vigilance, but they also maintain basic respect. But no matter what, news of 3 extraterrestrial people from Darnassus spread rapidly throughout the city, and ambassadors from various countries also came to watch the excitement upon hearing the news. Wu Wei only then faintly sensed Tyrande's intention. This is to make everyone accept us. If everyone accepts us, we will naturally no longer be the demons of the other world who infiltrated Tyrande Hill. It seems that the program will release us soon, but just as he breathed a sigh of relief, Vandal Deer Helmet was secretly annoyed. Go tell that outsider that I want to see him. How can I control them even if I let them escape like this? Quickly, Wu Wei was taken to Vandal's office, and he was looking puzzled as he said, Vandal just saw me yesterday, why did he summon me again? Vandal asked the others to leave and said directly to Wu Wei, ordinary people, don't think you can rest easy. If it weren't for me, Tyrande wouldn't even know about your existence. You have already been thrown into the dungeon by the guards waiting to rot. From beginning to end, I have been helping you. Without waiting for Wu Wei to speak, he continued on his own, let me tell you what would have happened without my support. First, Tyrande will convene a grand council, and she will introduce the whole thing, but she will only describe the facts and not say any biased words. Next, the guards will start accusing you, and most people will not object boldly and only watch the wind. Some conservatives will start to agree with the guards' accusations, and they don't need evidence. They just need to say things like, maybe, and, it's not worth the risk for this. At this point, those on the wall are even more afraid to speak. When there are only opposing voices on site, do you think Tyrande will stand out for you? You said, when the situation develops to this point, what will happen to you? Then, his words changed. But if the Cenarian Council comes forward to protect you, things will be very different. The Cenarian Council represents the will of all the Druids, and the Druids are the absolute rulers of the Night Elf Society. The Cenarian Council speaks for you, and the wall grass can support you with confidence, and Tyrande can release you with ease. So you see, I am the key to whether you can be safe. Wu Wei was immediately stunned. He realized that what Vandal said was likely true. Tyrande holds a high position of power. Why would he gamble on his reputation and status to speak for them when things are still unclear? So without Vandar's support, my family is destined to be cold. But Vandal is a deep pit. But Vandal's dear helmet spoke again. If you gain my support, let me tell you what you can get. First, you will gain my friendship, fame, and status. Secondly, you can gain recognition from the Cenarian Council, become a formal druid, and freely enter and exit the Moonlight Forest to learn various public spells. This is important because if you do not receive recognition from the Cenarian Council and the Council considers you a threat, they will have to recover the druid spells on you. Retrieve the spell. Isn't it the kind of reclaiming martial arts that abolishes them? It's like breaking the meridians and tendons of the hands and feet. Wu Wei's heart tightened and he couldn't help but speak. So how can I get your support? What can we do for you? This is also Wu Wei's long-standing doubt. Why is Vandal so devoted to them? What exactly does he want from his own family? Vandal dear helmet looked into Wu Wei's eyes upon hearing this. It's simple, as long as you make a vow and listen to me alone in the future, I can come forward to protect you. So it turns out we crave our bodies. Wu Wei was puzzled in his heart and said, Vandal dear helmet is a great druid, can we still lack subordinates? Thinking of what Vandal dear helmet had done, he suddenly realized. Vandal is not lacking subordinates, but lacking subordinates who do black work. Other druids will not be indecisive and obedient, but I don't know either. Why does he think I will follow him without distinguishing right from wrong? He wouldn't think I was a novice with no knowledge of Azeroth, would he? Yes. How could he possibly know that I have played World of Warcraft? After thinking through everything, Wu Wei suddenly felt enlightened and began to consider the pros and cons comprehensively, still considering it. No matter what, it's impossible to board the broken ship of Vandal. Otherwise, in the future, the entire Azeroth will not have a place for a family to live, unless they seek refuge with those evil villains destined to be thrown into the garbage heap of history. In the current situation, if I don't seek refuge with Vandal in Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, I won't be able to become a druid at most. If that's the case, I'll go into another profession. I don't believe it. Tyrande is like this, and he has gained another wave of favor in Darnassus. Can the Night Elves still destroy his family? What kind of demon does one's own family look like? Although the caretaker is blind, others can't be blind too, can they? But we can't offend Vandal now. Wu Wei once again discovered a new risk. Otherwise, Vandal would be angry and embarrassed, and would have kicked me up. He would have exposed my demonic nature to attack him. The Night Elves would definitely believe him and not believe me. If I died, I would have died in vain. But we cannot directly agree to him. Otherwise, if we retract later, we will offend him to death, and it will only be a matter of one sentence for him to pinch me. I can only say it as politely as possible. If I can procrastinate, I will procrastinate. Thinking of this, Wu Wei pretended to be indecisive and said, although I personally think what Your Excellency the Great Druid said is reasonable, this fact is difficult to make a decision. After all, our family is innocent, and I cannot believe that the Night Elves will really recognize us as demons. Relatively speaking, I still hope to maintain my freedom. At the same time, I also need to discuss with my family and ask the Great Druid to give us time to reconsider. Vandal dear helmet flashed with anger upon hearing the words, you're really looking for your own way. But he didn't want to argue too much with Wu Wei. At best, the Grand Council would side with the Guardians, and these three outsiders would still die. Okay, just think about it and notify me before the Grand Council convenes, otherwise I won't be able to save you in time. After speaking, he kicked Wu Wei out. Until the convening of the National Assembly, Vandal Deer Helmets did not wait for Wu Wei's response. Aliens, I want you to look good. Chapter 5. Dust Settling. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. On the other hand, Sun Lan and Wu Xing were anxiously waiting in the room. Wu Wei was called away alone for some unknown reason, which gave them various negative speculations. After finally waiting for Wu Wei to come back, his face was gloomy. Sun Lan quickly asked curiously, and Wu Wei recounted his intrigue with Vandal. In the long run, this must be the right choice, but I'm just afraid it might affect our family and we won't be able to get through. Sun Lan gritted her teeth and comforted, it's okay. Even if we can't pass the test, our family's fate is not good. As long as we're together, I'm not afraid of anything. The next day, the Grand Council was convened, and almost the entire population of Darnassus gathered to listen. As expected, the program did as van der Luhelm said. Tyrande introduced the entire situation of the incident, and then let the guards start accusing. These three yellow-skinned demons conspired to infiltrate Takeoff, deceiving the residents of Dorinar and scouting for intelligence in an attempt to sabotage. Thanks to our timely discovery, we stopped this conspiracy. They even deceived the druid Hecate Night Wind and stole the natural path bestowed upon the Night Elves by Cenarius. All the secrets of the Night Elves were revealed. We suspect they may even be related to Sartre who infiltrated Takeoff, so we hope to imprison them and interrogate them carefully, thoroughly uncover the mastermind behind the scenes, and bring peace to Takeoff. The representative of the caretaker spoke incessantly, describing the family as an unforgivable existence. I dare say it. What evidence do they have? Sun Lan trembled with anger. Wu Wei quickly comforted him and said, don't get excited, don't leave a bad impression on others. Next is the speech of the members of the National Assembly. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? The entire Takeoff is tightly protected without any deliberate plans, and the chance of these three extraterrestrial beings accidentally entering Takeoff is zero. I agree with the Watchman's view that they must have some evil purpose, wanting to threaten the safety of all Night Elves. If they are released, it may pose a huge threat to us. These three extraterrestrial beings have suspicious appearances, ugly faces, and are full of treacherous and evil auras. They must have ill intentions towards us. They may have a 1 in 10,000 chance of being innocent, but compared to the harm that releasing them may cause, it's not worth it. As expected by Vandal Deer Helmet, the conservatives began to follow the guards in verbally attacking the Wu Wei family, while no one took the risk of speaking for the family. Even the Teal German Wind furrowed her brows, and she couldn't help but look at the helmets of the Vandal Deer. Do the Cenarian Council have any objections? Vandal stared closely into Wu Wei's eyes, as if mocking his lack of respect. The Cenarian Council believes that these three people with unknown origins are very suspicious and cannot be trusted. They must be handed over to the Guardians for serious handling. This is different from what was agreed upon. Hector Night Wind stood up excitedly. You once said they were innocent and promised me to speak for them. Vandal Deer Helmet gave Hector a cold glance and said, it is a very serious mistake for the Hector Night Breeze to teach the way of nature to outsiders without the permission of the Cenarian Council. The Council believes that the Hector Night Breeze must immediately enter the Emerald Dream and use work to atone for it. Unexpectedly implicated Hector. Vandal has such a ruthless heart. Wu Wei was instantly furious. He regretted not joining the Vandal Deer Helmet. But he looked at his family and sighed in his heart, but I really can't do it. Just as Wu Wei thought the matter was settled, Tyrande spoke again, even criminals have the right to defend themselves. Wu Wei, do you have anything else to say? Yes. You can still defend yourself. Wu Wei was delighted in his heart and cast a grateful glance at Tyrande, beginning to organize language in his heart. Thank you all for giving me a chance to speak. My name is Wu Wei, and next to me are my wife and son. We come from a world without spells and extraordinary powers, where we are just ordinary people, relying on hard work to survive and spending our lives with family and friends. We have no other extravagance and regard the time spent with family and friends as the only happiness. But I don't know what kind of person played a joke on us and threw us into this world. The only thing we are grateful for is that we are still together as a family. We have lost other family, friends, homes, property, jobs, and social status, and come to this world with nothing. To be honest, this is not what we want, we would rather not come. But unfortunately, we don't know how we got here, nor do we know how to go back. Whether we come or go, we cannot be our own masters and can only be at our mercy. But we are also lucky, we have encountered a kind night elf. Although we have only been together for 2 months, we have received selfless help and love from our teachers Hecate and the residents of Dolinar, which has made us realize the kindness, generosity, peace, and justice of the night elf race. Without them, we would have died as soon as we arrived in this world. We are always grateful for this. We can understand why the Guardians are so hostile to us. Tedahir is the foundation for the survival of the night elves, and there is indeed no room for loss. But we cannot accept their blindness and recklessness. Please allow me to use a metaphor. We are like unfortunate people who accidentally wandered into the wilderness. Fate has brought us to the house of the night elves. The night elves can choose to help us or stand by, but they cannot persecute us as enemies for no reason. That is something that evil races only do. The Guardians, simply because we come from an unknown place and are not night elves, possess hands that can be used for both creation and destruction. Therefore, they begin to unjustly assume that we have malicious intentions towards night elves, that we want to destroy or occupy their houses, that we want to exterminate them, and that this kind of imagination wants to imprison or even kill us. Please open your eyes and see, where do we look like demons? My wife is a delicate woman, and my son is also a young child. How could our family be a threat from the night elves? I don't understand. If the night elves were so hysterical, how could they become friends with any race? Human beings have the ability to threaten the night elves, dwarves also have the ability to threaten the night elves, and guardian dragons. These entities theoretically pose a threat to the night elves. Do you all want to take action against them first? A person can be a friend or an enemy, which not only depends on the actions of the other person, but also on oneself. Speaking of us, from beginning to end, we never made any hostile words or actions towards the night elves, but the Guardians only treated us as enemies. If this is possible, I'm afraid in a few years, the night elves will be the world's enemies. After Wu Wei finished speaking, the whole audience fell into an audible silence, and everyone fell into contemplation. Tyrande even smiled in approval at Wu Wei. Vandal Deer Helmet, on the other hand, had an ironclad face. It was unexpected that this outsider would use his self-defense to overturn the situation. After a long time, suddenly applause began to ring. The applause woke up the contemplating people, and they all applauded along. The entire parliament instantly became an ocean of applause. He's right, we can't treat them like this. They are not demons, but a respectable race that can become friends with night elves. But Wu Wei glanced at Vandal and found him gritting his teeth as he looked at him. With a hint of pride, Wu Wei thought, it seems that Your Excellency the Great Druid can't do anything to us. This statement is excellent. Tyrande said in his tone, we night elves should not doubt or persecute anyone without malice. This statement is full of wisdom, and I have come to understand that our extraterrestrial friends must come from a wise and kind race. I believe they should be accepted and stay at Tedahir. Wu Wei and his family looked at each other happily and said, now it's stable. To be honest, the environment in Tedahil is extremely good, and they may even be foolish enough to want to leave because they have lived in Tedahil for a long time. But then the Tyrande language turned to the Vandal helmet and said, what do Your Highness the Great Druid think? Of course, Vandal Deer Helmet cannot tolerate these people from other worlds to retreat completely after disobeying him, but at this point, he cannot send them to prison again. But he saw Wu Wei's happy expression when he heard that he could stay at Tedahir. I won't make you proud. He squinted his eyes and thought to himself. I admit they are a kind race, harmless to the night elves, and they can also stay in Tetahir. But at the same time, I want to make a fair demand. They are not night elves and have no contribution to our country. This is unfair. We can't let those who have no contribution enjoy living in Tetahir for nothing just because they are kind and friendly, right? There are too many kind and friendly people in this world, should we let them all live in Tetahir? So I think they must make their own contribution to Tetahir. Vandal Deer Helmet turned to Wu Wei and said, Wu Wei, you are already a druid and should contribute your own strength. The Emerald Dream requires you. As long as you agree to enter the Emerald Dream, not only can you live in Tetahir, but the Cenarian Council will also recognize your legality. Of course, your wife Sun Lan and son Wu Xing cannot enjoy all of this for nothing. Sun Lan must join the Sentinel Corps and fight for the Night Elves. When Wu Xing reaches adulthood, he must also accept arrangements and contribute his own strength. Wu Wei and Sun Lan's smiles immediately froze on their faces, and Wu Xing, in his confusion, also realized that this was not a good thing, and their faces turned pale. He wants me to help them fight. Go to the battlefield to kill. Where is the Emerald Dream? Sun Lan asked Wu Wei in a frightened voice. Yes, he wants you to go to the battlefield. The Emerald Dream is Azeroth's dream world, and I only remember that the Lord of the Emerald Dream, Isara, had an agreement with the druid that the druid must spend most of their time in the Emerald Dream. As for what to do, I don't know, mostly to help maintain it. Wu Wei frowned and told Sun Lan. How can we do that? Sun Lan stomped her foot fiercely. Isn't it like we'll be apart forever? Mom and Dad, I don't want you to leave me. Wu Xing wiped away her tears. Wu Wei sighed and said to everyone, we refuse. We just want to be together as a family. He tried his best to explain, we usually only have a lifespan of a few decades, which makes me fall asleep for thousands or even thousands of years like other druids. Don't hesitate to sentence me to death. Perhaps you have a misunderstanding about the Emerald Dream, said Vandal Deer Helmet. When you enter the Emerald Dream, your life will be extended, and the Emerald Dream will not occupy even 1 second of your life. That's not enough. Before I wake up, my wife and son have already died. Wu Wei said angrily, this is simply cruel punishment. Many night elves couldn't help but nod their heads and say, this is really inhumane. Vandals remained calm. He had just seen through the family's thoughts and said, since that's the case, why don't you serve with your wife? This is already a huge concession. Sun Lan looked at Wu Wei and said, is that okay? Serving. Fighting on the battlefield. Knives and guns have no eyes. What's the difference between entering the Jade Dream? If the Jade Dream is a slow knife killing, then serving is just a fast knife killing. Based on his gaming experience in his past life, Wu Wei is well versed in the wars faced by night elves. Which of the 3 battlefields is not a meat grinder, the orcs of Grey Valley, the worms of Helicis, and the undead of Northrend? What are the demons that threaten nature, the past kin Sat and Naga, the twilight hammer that is eyeing Kalimdor, and the ancient gods behind them? They are even fighting inside. Yes, you're talking about the Vandal Deer Helmet. This is the leader of a clan. How can one's own family go to the battlefield and die for nothing? To put it bluntly, although the night elves live a long life, they also become lethargic. With a population of less than 50,000, who can they compete against? If everyone is Superman, it's okay, but most night elves have a longer lifespan and are not much stronger than other races. They are no longer the protagonists of the world. In one sentence, there is no future. This is like a company that is lethargic and struggling to survive, barely able to make ends meet. It's not something that a hardworking and wise person would do. We also refuse. Wu Wei said decisively at this thought, we are a peaceful race and don't want to waste decades of our lives in war and slaughter. At this moment, except for a few silly and sweet ones among the night elves, they all realized something was wrong. We are taking you in, and you are not even willing to do anything for us. No matter how well you said earlier, it's useless. Vandal Deer Helmet sneered in his heart, as expected. He spoke with a murderous heart, then I have to doubt whether your previous statement was a lie. The caretaker also jumped out and said, we've already said that they have ulterior motives. Let's hand them over to the caretaker and we'll figure out their conspiracy. Some night elves even started nodding. Wu Wei was well aware that he had done something unethical and could only remain silent. It's such a jerk to only enjoy benefits and refuse to take responsibility. But he really doesn't want to die on the battlefield where he must lose. A family that has traveled together without being separated, yet has to part ways on someone else's battlefield. As the situation was about to slide towards the abyss of being imprisoned again, the high-ranking priestess Tyrande suddenly spoke in her voice, for short-lived races with only a few decades of lifespan, this is not incomprehensible. But just as we cannot convict them of baseless suspicion, we cannot punish them for refusing to be separated from their families. But rights and responsibilities are always one, and since they refuse to take responsibility, they refuse to become one of us. We don't need to do anything cruel, let them leave Takeoff. I propose to expel the Wu Wei family and send them to the Black Coast. Vandal Deer Helmet originally intended to provoke everyone's hatred and seek help from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to send the family back to prison, but he did not want to be intercepted by Tyrande's words. Vandal Deer Helmet frowned and said, why did Tyrande defend these extraterrestrial beings like this? Is it just because of a soft heart? Although he had doubts, he didn't want to offend Tyrande too much. After thinking about it, he swallowed back his opposition and said, forget it, this is enough to make these three outsiders realize the consequences of disobeying me. I'm reconsidering. Reconsideration. It should be like this. Exile them. Forever prohibit them from entering Takeoff. Tyrande's proposal was almost 100% approved, and the family quickly went from being accepted to being expelled. Wu Wei breathed a sigh of relief, but felt a bit disappointed in his heart. His family must leave Takeoff, which is highly likely to prolong life. The night elves did not give them the opportunity and time to pack their luggage, and immediately wanted to escort them out of the country. But Tyrande still found the opportunity to say two words to them. This is the limit of what I can do for you. I hope you won't hate the night elves because of this. No, we are very grateful. Wu Wei sternly said, it's all our own fault that things have developed to this point. It's not your fault, nor the night elves. On the contrary, I appreciate your tolerance and help. Tyrande nodded and was very satisfied with Wu Wei's attitude. The Black Coast is the territory of the night elves, not the wilderness. You can live there with peace of mind. After speaking, he turned around and left. The family was escorted by sentinels through the portal, and in an instant, the sky and earth changed. They arrived at a strange area, not far away by the seaside, where a small village was visible. Chapter 6. Hunger and Cold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This world is really wonderful. Sun Lan sighed, in just the blink of an eye, we've changed places. Where is this, Lao Wu? Wu Xing mischievously glanced at the teleportation gate behind him, clearly wanting to do it again. Underneath Takeoff, ahead lies the village of Rutherland, the only pier for entering and exiting Takeoff. Wu Wei replied with emotion. Since I traveled unpreparedly to Azeroth, I have been living in Takeoff for over 2 months in the blink of an eye. Suddenly leaving now feels a bit reluctant. Outside was a vast, familiar, and unfamiliar world, full of excitement and danger. Wu Wei's mood suddenly felt like a young man who was about to step into society after graduating from college. The sentry did not give the family time to visit the village of Rutherland, and directly took them to the dock where a ship was waiting for them. Although it was just a simple passing by, it still allowed them to catch a glimpse of the small village. Can night elves also fish? Sun Lan asked in surprise as she looked at the fishing nets hanging in the village. These guys can live for thousands of years, but they actually have to fish themselves. It's like a fan suddenly realizing that even idols can poop. Wu Wei nodded and said, even night elves have to eat. They just have a long lifespan. Although the proportion of extraordinary professions is higher than other races, not all members are extraordinary. There are still ordinary people. Just as the sentry was escorting the family onto the ship, suddenly a shout came from behind. Wait, Wu Wei, wait. The voice was very familiar, and when Wu Wei turned around, it turned out to be the teacher Hecate. Teacher. You don't have to enter the Emerald Dream anymore. Wu Wei was delighted in his heart. It seemed that with his identity washed away, the teacher was also relieved of the blame. It's not like that. But entering the Jade Dream is not in a hurry. I will be ready in a few days. Compared to thousands of years, a few days are as brief as lightning crossing the sky. Hecate's night breeze calmly handed the backpacks and a large package of the three to Wu Wei. This is your thing, and I have packed them all for you. Surprisingly, these things were specially sent here. Wu Wei received the package and felt mixed emotions for a moment. He thought all these things would have to stay at Tetahir. For example, for a car, he really doesn't know how to maintain it and has no confidence in finding a suitable fuel, so he has no intention of driving it away. The more thoughtful Hector is now, the more he feels uneasy in his heart. I'm sorry, teacher, I've caused you trouble. No, all of this was my own choice. Hector Nightwind smiled and said, I have never regretted my actions. I always believe that teaching you the way of nature is the most correct decision I have made in my life. I just hope you don't let down your talents, don't let down nature. Use your power well. Wu Wei choked up for a moment, unsure of what to say, while Sun Lan and Wu Xing burst into tears. Wu Xing cried and said, Grandpa Hecate, I will miss you. Hecate Nightwind touched Wu Xing's head and said, I have lived for thousands of years, but I never know what it feels like to have children. It was you who gave me this rare experience. He continued, you said you only have a few decades to live, but my slumber this time, if nothing unexpected, will last for 1,000 years. So this will be our last side, and I will remember you. I also hope you cherish your time and not waste any second. May Elun protect you, and I will leave. After speaking, he walked on the same path as before without looking back. At this moment, Wu Wei could no longer hold his tension and burst into tears. Teacher, I will remember what you taught me. Farewell came so suddenly. In the same world, but never to see each other again in this life. 2 months ago, their family was forced to permanently separate from everything on earth. But I didn't expect to bear this kind of sadness today. The sentinels on the side were also moved and waited for them to finish crying before sending them onto the ship. The wooden sailboat, adorned with dark elf patterns, is elegant and rustic, with lines as beautiful and romantic as the waist of a spring girl. Driven by the sail, it slowly departs from the dock. Farewell, Tetahir. Wu Wei secretly made up his mind in front of the world tree, one day, I will come back. Forget it, it's better not to come back. This is not our home, don't lose your life inexplicably anymore. Thinking of the recent anxieties, Wu Wei felt that the taste of freedom was better. Leaving the vortex of power, no one cares about these small people anymore. There is no need to worry about these worries. The feeling of soaring freely in the vast sea and sky suddenly arises. However, these past few days' experience, although dangerous, is also unusual. Being able to chat and laugh with the 2 leaders of the night elves is enough to make a big fuss. As the bow of the ship kept breaking away from the waves, the color of the seawater began to change from light to dark, and the docks in Rutherland village gradually disappeared from view. However, Tetahir still stands tall, like a strange tree growing in the sea. Not only did she not become blurry, but because of the distance, it allows people to have a full view. I don't know the true face of Mount Lu, only because I am in this mountain. When living in Tyrande, the family only knew that Tyrande was very large, but it was completely unimaginable how big it was. In the village of Rutherland, they finally saw the wide walls of Tyrande, with no borders to the left, no boundaries to the right, no tops to the top, and straight into the clouds like vertical mountain trunks. But it wasn't until now that they had to leave Tyrande that they realized all their imagination could only be called barren. The island she grew up on is as big as Hainan Island. Such a huge island, in front of the tree trunk about the same thickness as the island, is like a pagoda and its base. Her tall figure makes the sky appear low, and her huge tree crown can cover half of the sky even from afar. The wooden sailboat sailed for a whole day, only to see the land on the opposite side, but the crown of the Tyrande tree is still visible from afar. It's really unscientific. Will this thing really not affect the rotation of the planet? Dad, this tree is too big. It's bigger than the mountains. Wu Xing called out to Wu Wei, who was also being suppressed, I can't even dream of such a big tree. Wu Wei touched Wu Xing's head and said, this is Tyrande. This is Azeroth. The ship was getting closer and closer to the land, and the dock had already appeared in view, but the sea gradually became more foggy. Why is it foggy? Sun Lan held Wu Xing in her arms and said, it's a bit cold. It was already evening, and a damp and cold feeling followed the thin mist as it thrust into the clothes of the three of them, causing them to tighten their bodies and start trembling. Wu Wei tightened his clothes and let out a hot breath, indeed, why is it so cold here? He rarely comes to the Black Coast in the game, but he hasn't been here before. Why don't you remember that the Black Coast is a cold place? Oh, so I can't feel the warmth and coldness of the gaming environment when playing games on a computer. It's okay then. When the family traveled, it was early summer and they wore thin clothing. Coincidentally, the destination of the trip was Tyrande, which was full of spring all year round, so I never thought about adding clothes. At this moment, the misty, damp and cold Black Coast all year round suddenly felt a bit unbearable. Wu Wei opened the backpack and package sent by Hecate, attempting to find a piece of warm clothing. But inside, there was only a small amount of packaged food from Earth that they had left, a few peaches, 2 straw-style stainless steel insulated pots belonging to Sun Lan and Wu Xing, and a glass tea separation insulated cup. They also have their tent, moisture-proof mat, sleeping bag, simple folding table and chair, small firewood stove, a small flat-bottomed pot, a small steamer, a kettle, 3 sets of tableware, and a lighter. Then there are the composite bows and arrows that now belong to Sun Lan, including a straight knife, a folding knife, a multifunctional military knife, a plastic steel small round shield, an engineering shovel, and a swing stick. These are all their assets. After all, they were not professional campers, and at that time they only planned to spend one night, so their preparation was not sufficient. At least for now, they still lack assault jackets and raincoats. Unable to find any clothes, Wu Wei shook his head in disappointment, seeming to have to go ashore and say, teacher is really putting a lot of effort into packing up everything. In fact, some things are completely useless, such as plastic steel small round shields and swing sticks. I don't want to use them to deal with swords and magic. Sun Lan picked up the composite bow and said, most things are still very useful. Wu Wei thought for a moment and said, let's divide the things and put all the food with you. As a druid with a knife, it's useless for me to use a straight knife as a hunting knife, a folding knife for Wu Xing, and I'll bring an engineering shovel. These are all very useful things that we can carry with us. I'll carry the tent, tableware, and kitchen utensils. Sun Lan nodded and hung the knife on his belt, while Wu Xing happily put the folding knife into his pocket. Then they sorted out all the other items and placed them in a place where they could be used at any time. Next, they will face the challenge of survival. The place where the ship is about to dock is the only town on the Black Coast, Oberdeen, which is also a necessary route to enter and exit Tyrande. Night elves generally do not accept visits from foreign ships, and anyone who wants to go to Takeoff must pass through Oberdeen for transit. At the same time, the needs of Takeoff will also be shipped through Oberdeen, and all output will be first transported to Oberdeen. But even so, Oberdeen is still just a small town. There's no way, the population size of the Night Elves is too small. It's getting dark, where do we live now that we're ashore? Sun Lan asked casually as she watched the ship dock. At this moment, Wu Wei was stunned and asked, "No, where are you staying?" He quickly asked the sentinel who was escorting them, "Do the high-ranking priestesses have any arrangements for us?" The sentry shook his head and said, "We were just ordered to send you to Oberdeen, and everything else after that has nothing to do with us. I'm in trouble now. What should I do if I'm not familiar with the place?" He is not Hector, although he has also become a druid, he cannot give birth to the treehouse. Stay in a hotel. I don't have any money either. Oh my. I said I always thought something was wrong just now. Wu Wei smacked his lips. The teacher brought so many things, why didn't he bring some money? As the old saying goes, having money can travel the world, but without it, it's difficult to move a step forward. Since they came to this world, they have lived in treehouses, eaten wild fruits and beasts they have hunted, and the whole family has never been worried about money. Previously, Wu Wei had also considered long-term business issues. He specifically learned how to pick herbs and refine gold, and arranged for Sun Lan to learn hunting and skinning. But the problem is also here. Their limited income has already been fully invested in their studies. And they were suddenly detained by guards, and after a series of dazzling games, they were unprepared to be kicked out of Takeoff. How could they have any extra thought to consider money? Sun Lan smiled bitterly and said, "Why do you think a druid who has been squatting in a mountain ditch for thousands of years would care about the currency of the mortal world?" Sun Lan's words make perfect sense. At this moment, the ship docked and the sentry urged them to disembark. The family got off the ship in small packages, and the sentry ignored them. Suddenly, Wu Wei had an idea and casually asked the sailor, "Is there cargo on the ship? If there is a shortage of porters, what do you think of me? Isn't this the opportunity to make money?" The sailor on the ship gave him a glance and said, "In order to wait for you, we delayed the departure time. It's getting dark now, how can we unload the goods? What should we do if we drop the goods and people into the sea? If we want to earn money for handling, we need to hurry early tomorrow." "Good guy, it's our own family that's causing trouble for them." The family had no choice but to walk out of the dock in despair. Having no relatives or a penny, the whole family felt a sense of desolation. At this moment, Wu Wei was extremely grateful that the Hecate night breeze had brought their tent over. If not, their family would have to camp on the streets all day long. The layout of the dock in Oberdeen is strange, and it's unclear whether it's caused by the art bacteria of the Night Elves or for some other reason. The wooden pier actually leads straight into Oberdeen's only hotel. It's still the second floor. I don't know how strong the hotel owner's network is. Everyone and goods have to walk around his hotel, regardless of whether they enter or exit, which is also a rare wonder in the world. The family was carrying big and small bags, drooling as they watched the warm room of the hotel and walked out. The beautiful hostess of the hotel looked at them with strange eyes. "Guest, do you have a place to stay in Oberdeen? It's already late, why don't you make do for the night at the small shop? You'll have time to catch up early tomorrow morning." "But I don't have any money." Wu Wei blushed with embarrassment, he was a hero who couldn't die for a penny. After thinking about it, there was really no place to go. If you couldn't stay in a hotel, you had to set up a tent. It was really unfair to your wife and children, so you asked calmly, "How much does it cost to stay in a room for 3 people? I happen to have a large room available, so I'll charge you 2 silver coins and 60 copper coins," the hostess replied happily. There are 3 common currencies in Azeroth: copper coins, silver coins, and gold coins, with an exchange ratio of 1.100.10000, which means that 1 gold coin is equal to 100 silver coins and 10,000 copper coins. Wu Wei didn't know if the price was high or low, but when he played games back then, he used gold coins, often hundreds. Putting these 2.6 silver coins in the game was also similar to being free. Unfortunately, it's not in the game now, and he can't even take out a copper from his body. How about? We don't want this face anymore. Wu Wei gritted his teeth and approached the innkeeper's wife in a low voice, saying, "The price is quite reasonable, but we don't have any money with us. Do you think we can borrow some credit for now and pay when we earn money?" Seeing the hostess's face change, he quickly made up for it and said, "If you can accept the mortgage, that's fine." Wu Wei took out his useless plastic steel small round shield and aluminum magnesium alloy mechanical swing stick and said, "These two are strange things from a different world, both processed with substances that do not exist in this world. Although they are not very useful, they have great collection value. I will use these two things as collateral, or if you are interested, you can directly purchase them." Strange things from a different world. The hostess frowned and took 2 items. She looked at the material of the small round shield, which was not gold or wood. She then went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and, under the introduction of Wu Wei, opened and closed the swing stick. The production is exquisite, but it looks useless. Perhaps some wealthy people would be interested in purchasing it. Wu Wei saw the innkeeper's wife looking uninterested, and his heart sank. At the same time, he began to calculate what chips he had to take out. The weapons and tools cannot be moved, and there shouldn't be anything unusual about pots, bowls, ladles, pots, tents, and sleeping bags, so there are only 3 water kettles left that are still worth some money. The vacuum stainless steel insulated kettle processed by Earth's technology is definitely a rare thing that Azeroth does not have. Wu Wei was about to take out the kettle when the hostess suddenly asked, "So, aren't you from this world?" "I thought it was very obvious." Feeling like there might be a turning point, Wu Wei stopped taking the kettle and chuckled, "Or have you ever seen someone like us? After all, there are a variety of creatures in this world, and it's not surprising that there are intelligent creatures that I haven't seen before." The innkeeper looked at Wu Wei and said, "Okay, I can owe you a day's rent. If you don't have the money tomorrow, the things belong to me and you can move out." "Yes." Wu Wei was overjoyed and quickly greeted Sun Lan and Wu Xing, "Come over quickly, there's a room to stay." Then he bowed gratefully to the hostess and said, "Thank you very much for your generosity. You are such a good person." The hostess felt a sense of being deceived when she saw his overjoyed expression. Wu Wei was still speaking, "Thank you for taking care of me. I don't know your name yet. Please make sure to let me know who my benefactor is." The hostess blinked her eyes and convinced herself that she had only paid for an empty room for 1 night before resisting the urge to back out. "My name is Shaheen, welcome to stay." Chapter 7, Barrel 1 of Gold. Ah no, Barrel 1 of Silver. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The family slept soundly in the hotel, feeling that they had never been so relaxed these past few days. Although I was kicked out of Tatahir, the feeling of freedom is really amazing. At this point, the fog on land has dissipated, leaving only a little on the sea surface. Although the sun rises slightly, the climate on the Black Coast remains cool. It seems that besides the rent, we also need to prepare money to buy clothes. Wu Wei silently remembered this matter in his heart. They had breakfast with convenient food brought from the earth, and Wu Wei felt a little reluctant. After all, these hometown flavors were getting less and less, and one day after finishing them, there was no chance to even savor them. Every object from Earth seems to be a link between them and the Earth. A little less, the Earth will be further away. But now they still owe the hotel room money on credit, so they don't have much time to make him sad. Seizing the time to make money is the right thing. Let Azeroth's happy life start with having enough food, clothing, warmth, and a place to live. Sun Lan was now fully armed. She held a composite bow, carried an arrow pouch and dagger on her waist, and packed food and water bottles into her backpack. Let's go hunting. The meat we hunted can be eaten, and the skin we peeled can also be sold to leather dealers. I just don't know how the local purchase price is. But don't worry, we need to make money from the house quickly. Okay, I'll go pick some herbs. When I have enough herbs, I'll find a way to borrow alchemy tools and refine some medicinal liquid to sell for money. Wu Wei rubbed his face, packed his bag, and instructed Wu Xing, stay in the room, don't run around, wait for us to come back. Wu Xing nodded reluctantly, knowing that if his parents couldn't make money, their family would have to wander into the wilderness. Wu Wei and Sun Lan walked out of the room and shamelessly approached the landlady, Sha Xin. Thank you for taking us in. We will soon make money for the room. Don't be afraid of us running away. We will leave your child here. Please take some time to take care of him and don't let him wander around. Shashi looked at them with some helplessness. Tell me, money is not that easy to earn. Do you have any plans? The Black Coast is not safe here, so don't let the money go unnoticed. After all, your child is still with me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything, but I really hope you can carefully consider your plans. Perhaps you can find a job in town, which is much safer than going on an adventure. Wu Wei knew that Shashi was well-intentioned, but he naturally wouldn't back down because of this. After all, his wife Sun Lan was a female hunter under the Sentinel Corps, and although druids were not uncommon among night elves, they were also renowned extraordinary spellcasters in Azeroth. To be honest, I am actually a druid, and my wife is also a professional hunter. Please rest assured that we will not joke about our own lives. Wu Wei could only give Shashi Yin a reassuring pill. Shikin widened her eyes and said, You, druid. Alright, I offended you. If you had revealed your identity last night, I wouldn't have taken your collateral last night. You can take it back now. Wu Wei was taken aback for a moment. The druid's identity was really useful in the Night Elf Society, and he said, there's no need for that. Okay, then. But please avoid the north and the seaside. There have been rumors of ghosts in the ruins of the city in the north, and several people have already gone missing there. There are fish people around the seaside, and many people have been attacked. It's best for you to head south. That's the road to Ash Valley, with sentries patrolling. As long as you don't leave the main road too far, there won't be too much danger. Shaheen still gave advice. Thank you for the reminder, we're leaving. After bidding farewell to Shaheen, the couple walked straight outside of Oberdeen. Of course, Wu Wei doesn't have a strong head. He's not a legendary hero who can dominate the world. He's staying at the hotel with his wife and children waiting for them to come back. He's crazy enough to go on an adventure. They quickly set foot on the road to Grey Valley, as Shaheen had described it, starting from the main road and delving deep into the jungle. They walked for a while and soon saw a little deer. Sun Lan raised her bow and aimed at it, but was stopped by Wu Wei, saying, Deer skin is not as valuable as the skin of a beast. We have limited things we can bring back, let this deer go. So they continued to move forward, and Sun Lan used her tracking knowledge to search for the trail of the beast as much as possible. Wu Wei, on the other hand, did not spare any grass and wanted to find usable herbs. They dare not leave the main road too far, and after walking for a while, they have to return to the main road to correct their direction. We need a compass. I didn't notice when checking things yesterday, and the compass I brought from Earth wasn't inside. The teacher must have left the compass behind while packing up. Wu Wei complained, so we need to save money to buy another one. Otherwise, it's too easy to get lost. We still need a map. Sun Lan followed, and a watch. I don't know how much time it would be. They are all used to using their phones to check the time, and have never had the habit of wearing a watch. As a result, when they traveled to Azeroth, their phones became bricks and they became blind. Who knew they would travel? If they knew how to travel, they would have to buy a watch and wear it high and low. It would have to be mechanical, not electric. Wu Wei said, "Forget it, there are pocket watches in this world. If there's a chance to save money and buy a piece." Sun Lan suddenly lowered her voice and said, "Listen, there's a big guy ahead." The two of them hid behind a tree and looked in the direction of the sound. Sure enough, a bear was foraging. Sun Lan bent her bow and arched an arrow. With a slight aim, she pulled the spreader and the arrow, driven by the composite bow, instantly penetrated the bear's body, leaving a transparent hole. The bear was severely injured and didn't care about searching for the enemy. With a mournful cry, it turned around and fled. Sun Lan waited for a while, but the sound disappeared before quickly catching up. The bear escaped less than 10 meters and was lying on the ground without a sound. Its blood flowed all over the ground, but it was already dead. Got it. Sun Lan looked at the bear corpse and wanted to peel it off, but the remaining bear meat would inevitably be dirty. She couldn't bear to part with the bear meat and said, "What should we do, old Wu? How can we bring back the bear meat? We should be able to sell it for money, right?" Wu Wei pondered for a moment and said, "Why don't you peel it here? Let's withdraw. I'll turn into a bear and carry it back. Then we should sell skin and meat. Bear fights bear." Sun Lantern showed a strange expression. Will the scene be too beautiful? Why is she a bit afraid to look? What else can I do? Can you think of a trick for me? Wu Wei rolled his eyes. This bear has been living in the wild for a long time, and there must be lice on its body. The grease on its fur has also become thick, and it is now covered in blood all over its body. After death, its muscles will relax, and I don't know if it will lose control. He doesn't like to carry it yet. Isn't this all due to the pressure of life? After complaining, Wu Wei transformed into a bear and asked Sun Lan to help him carry the bear's body onto his back. The two of them began to return to Oberdeen. As soon as they entered Oberdeen, they caught everyone's attention. What kind of monster is this? Oh my God, it's a live bear carrying a dead bear. Even the guards wanted to intervene. What if we let this bear out and hurt someone? Sun Lan quickly explained, "This is my husband, a druid." Druids. The guard looked strange and said, "Druids hunting beasts. Did they bring their prey back?" Wu Wei did not transform back into human form until he carried the bear corpse to the hotel. The innkeeper's wife, Shashi, had already heard a voice and rushed out. "I didn't expect you to hunt so quickly." Wu Wei chuckled and said, "Do you purchase bear meat?" "Sorry, the night elves only eat very little meat, so I can only buy a little bit. I think you might want to go to the north of town and take a look." Shaheen said, "Some dwarves are living there right now, and they might be interested in bear meat." Wu Wei then found a stone, carried the bear corpse up, and asked Sun Lan to peel it first. He went alone to the north of the town to ask the dwarves. He passed through a bridge and arrived at a large house in the north of the town. Two large cars were parked in front of the house, with a furnace and iron felt next to them. A male dwarf and a female dwarf were busy. "Excuse me, I hunted a bear. Do you want to buy bear meat? I promise it's fresh." Wu Wei shyly shouted at the dwarves and dwarves. He had never done any business in his past life, so suddenly he was asked to solicit business like a businessman, which was quite embarrassing. The dwarf and dwarf looked at Wu Wei, and their eyes lit up. "A race you haven't seen before. Oh, buddy, where are you from?" Although Wu Wei didn't want to entangle himself with his race, he still hoped that the dwarves would buy meat, so he introduced his background. The dwarf suddenly became interested and said, "Oh my goodness, a strange race from a different world, tell me quickly what your world looks like." The dwarf also looked at him with a curious expression on his face. "When is this supposed to be the head? Besides, I can't just sell the earth to the bottom by catching someone, can I?" So Wu Wei didn't take the blame from the dwarves and just smiled and asked, "Do you want fresh bear meat?" As soon as the dwarf heard this, his eyes immediately turned and he said, "You wait." After finishing speaking, he ran back into the room in a lively manner, and after a while, a group of dwarves rushed out. Wu Wei was startled and said, "Is this calling someone to hit me? I didn't do anything either." He was about to run away when the dwarf shouted, "We have all the bear meat you hunted. Hurry up and tell us what your world is like." Wu Wei was overjoyed in his heart, but at the same time, he had a black line on his face and said, "These dwarves are too curious." "Don't worry," he shouted, "I can't finish talking about my world for 3 days and 3 nights. When I bring the bear meat first, let's sit down and talk in detail." After speaking, Wu Wei got rid of the dwarves watching the excitement and happily went back to fetch meat. Returning to the hotel, Sun Lan had already peeled off the bear skin and was decomposing the bear meat with the help of Wu Xing. A male night elf dressed in a robe, with purple hair and a purple goatee, watched angrily. Wu Weijing was about to ask Sun Lan who this person was when the night elf spoke up, "You are the new druid. Who is your teacher? Didn't he tell you that druids are guardians of nature and should not kill animals for personal gain? Look at the bloody mess you've made on the ground." Wu Wei was suddenly displeased. Who would like this kind of accusation? "Big brother, our family must live. We can't even afford to stay at the hotel. If we don't go hunting, will we go robbing? What's wrong with the druid? The druid of the night elf, who lives for thousands of years, may be a fairy and does not eat human fireworks." But Wu knew for himself that although he had become a druid, he was by no means a carefree immortal. The night elf fell silent for a moment and said, "If you're an ordinary person, it's understandable to do this, but you're a druid, and these beasts treat you like a friend. Hunting only one bear doesn't solve your problem. I know. So, if someone were willing to pay to hire you, would you accept it? I am Cerulean Whiteclaw, also a druid with some local connections. I will come back tomorrow with work information. I hope you don't hunt these creatures for money anymore." After speaking, the druid named Cerulean's Whiteclaw left. Wu Wei and Sun Lan exchanged a glance, both feeling that this druid was not difficult to speak of, nor was he an unreasonable animal protector. Since he could provide profitable missions, they did not insist on hunting. Who likes the stinky and bloody mess? Sorry to bother you. Wu Wei and Sun Lan quickly decomposed the bear meat. The hostess, Sha Xin, wanted to purchase 15 pounds of bear meat at a price of 18 copper coins per pound. Wu Wei did not ask for Sha Xin's money. In order to thank Sha Xin for taking it in, he used the 15 pounds of meat as yesterday's room fee, and the extra amount was counted as interest and gratitude. Now, on the contrary, Shashi expressed gratitude to Wu Wei and developed a strong affection for the family due to Wu Wei's generous behavior. The remaining bear meat was left by the family for about 2 pounds as a tooth offering, and the rest was sent to the dwarves by Wu Wei, which earned them 65 silver coins. The family's economy suddenly became more prosperous, and they could stay in a 2.6 silver room for almost a month. Wu Wei handed over all the money to Sun Lan. When he was on Earth, his family's money was kept by Sun Lan. As for what to do if Wu Wei needs money, Sun Lang never restricts Wu Wei's use of money. Unfortunately, most of the time, the family doesn't have much savings. The first thing a family does when they have money is to buy clothes. Black Coast, this damn weather, the whole family is still freezing. They inquired about the location of the local tailor at Shakin's place and sought out the night elf named Grondel Moonwind, intending to customize 3 easy-to-move jackets. It takes a week to make 3 coats, so the 3 of them can only buy 3 old clothes from unknown sources first, barely keeping warm from the cold. 3 old clothes only cost 60 copper coins, but ordering 3 coats costs 5 silver coins and 40 copper coins. The family's wealth suddenly shrank to 59 silver coins. After buying clothes, Wu Wei did not break his promise and returned to tell the dwarves about the earth. The dwarves invited Wu Wei to eat their roasted bear meat together. Wu Wei's generosity made him blush, so he spent 3 silver coins to buy 2 bottles of good wine for the dwarves to drink. Both sides became familiar with each other as soon as they came and went. Originally, Wu Wei was the first dwarf he came into contact with, named Sergram Stonehammer. He also had an older brother named Kudram Stonehammer. The 2 brothers were senior miners who followed the exploration team to Black Coast, mainly responsible for geological exploration and exploration. They also did some smelting and repair work in their daily lives, and Wu Wei's first contact with a dwarf named Jenna Remnali was an engineer accompanying the exploration team. Wu Wei suddenly came to his senses. He didn't forget about learning engineering to make guns for Sun Lan. Do you want to learn engineering? Jenna Remneli's eyes lit up. Engineering is not that easy to learn. I can teach you, and every drawing is clearly priced, including teaching and learning. If you want to learn engineering, you can't help but look for various metals at the book garden www.zhaozhuiyuan.com. Come to me, be honest, young and old. Selgram Stonehammer also came to his senses. Wu Wei was speechless for a moment. He had just earned some money from the dwarves, and now it's probably not enough to pay back 10 times. Learning is inevitable, but you have to let me save money first. His gritted teeth made the dwarves burst into laughter. Returning to the hotel, Wu Wei began planning his wealth plan. He first went to inquire with the hotel owner, Sha Xin, about where she could sell bear skin for a good price. Sha Xin recommended the armor merchant of Oberdeen, Halon Thorn Armor. Halon Thorn Armor paid 10 silver coins for this bear skin, which instantly inflated the family's funds to 69 silver coins. After deducting the 3 silver coins and 40 copper coins spent on staying and eating today, there are still 65 silver coins and 60 copper coins left. After finishing all this, Wu Wei hung out the collected herbs and began to study how to refine them into medicinal liquid. Through this hunting, he collected a total of 16 Ningxian flowers, 15 silver leaf grass, 8 root grass, and 3 magic emperor grass. Among them, the rhizome grass is an auxiliary ingredient for several medicinal liquids and is currently of little use. Ningxian flower and silver leaf grass he plans to make into primary therapeutic potions. The magic emperor grass, on the other hand, is the most precious. Paired with thorn grass, it can be made into a secondary magic potion, which is widely welcomed by various low-level spellcasters. But the problem is that he doesn't have alchemy tools and thorny algae. Thorny algae are algae that live in water, or you can ask local fishermen where to find alchemy tools. He asked the innkeeper, Sha Xiyin, but she didn't know where to get the alchemy tools. She then ran to ask the dwarves from the Explorers Association, who also didn't lend any alchemy tools. Now Wu Wei has completely lost his mind, and his plan to make a fortune has come to an end. Chapter 8. Come quickly, go quickly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Wu Weizheng, whose alchemy plan went bankrupt, taught Wu Xing how to read together with Sun Lan. When they were at Tetahir, they had limited access to paper and pen, so they only silently wrote a few Chinese classics with fewer words for Wu Wei. These days they have made money in Oberdeen, so they have memorized textbooks for subjects such as Chinese, mathematics, physics, chemistry, and geography. Wu Xing is not so resistant to studying anymore. Having an exceptional learning ability and being able to learn everything quickly has sparked his interest in learning. Anyway, he's bored staying in the hotel, so it's better for him to learn something to pass the time. As he was learning, Druid Saralin's White Claw came knocking on his door. Hey, this is still a believer. Wu Wei welcomed him in with a smile. Yesterday I said I wanted to help find a job, and today I am indeed here. Elun is with you. Strange Druid. Cerulean spoke with white claws. Wu Wei suddenly realized that he had not given his surname by name yesterday. They are here to work for themselves, so it's not impolite. So Wu Wei quickly said, Elun is with you, my name is Wu Wei. This is my wife Sun Lan and child Wu Xing, you have seen them all. Alright, Wu Wei. Cerelian's White Claw spoke again. I asked a familiar friend and there are currently 2 jobs available for you. The first job was provided by Vanessa Bragg, who was dispatched from the Moon Temple. She needed to take a tissue sample from a stranded giant beast on the southern beach, but there were fishmen at the location where the beast was stranded, which made it impossible for her to go there on her own. This task was risky, so she was willing to offer a high price of 12 silver coins. The second job was provided by Terence, who wanted someone to scout the surrounding bear monster tribes and see if there were any signs of corruption among them. It is said that someone has been injured by the fallen bear monster in Tedahir. Alas, it's really a tumultuous time. Because I don't know the location of the bear monster tribe, this job requires reconnaissance of a wide area, and the wilderness is full of danger. For this reason, Terence is willing to offer a reward of 15 silver coins. It has to be said that Cerelian's White Claw is like a spit on a nail. Whenever he says he helps find a job, he helps find a job, and even finds 2 at once. But to be honest, after selling bears and earning over 70 silver coins yesterday, these jobs that require adventure to obtain, with only a dozen or so silver coins as compensation, are no longer interesting to Wu Wei. But Wu Wei thought for a moment and realized that hunting bears has a certain element of luck. If we hunt for a long time, it's hard to say how many days we can catch a bear. Besides, dwarves cannot always take away bear meat. As Wu Wei saw yesterday, the population of Oberdeen may only be over 100. Even if we hunt bears every day, such a small market cannot digest it. So yesterday's over 70 silver coins should have been a chance income, not a real one. These jobs worth more than 10 silver coins may be the normal situation. With this in mind, Wu Wei has already tended to take on the work brought by Cerelian's White Claw and began to carefully consider the risks of these 2 tasks. My first job was to take tissue samples from stranded giant beasts, which seemed incredibly simple, but they were located in areas where fish people were seen. Wu Wei knows nothing more about the fish man of Azeroth. He didn't know how many times he died in the hands of the fish man while playing games back then. The fish man of Azeroth is a social intelligent creature. They have a simple social organization and live in groups on a tribal basis. There are usually dedicated warriors and marksmen in the tribe, and most tribes even have spellcasters. If you provoke one, it is equivalent to provoking a group. It is best to keep a distance from adventurers who travel alone. Going to Fishman's territory to collect tissue samples from giant beasts is like pulling teeth out of a tiger's mouth. This type of job is suitable for powerful teams or savvy thieves. They should be pushed over unevenly, or they can sneak in and steal, and then run away. If someone else had changed, Wu Wei might have already had the intention to give up on this job, but he was secretly happy in his heart. He is a druid with the form of a raven. As long as you fly over from the sky, take advantage of the fact that the fisherman is not paying attention and land next to the giant beast, transform back into a human form to take a sample of the monster's tissue, and instantly transform back into a raven and fly away. Not to mention that he also has the form of a black panther that can infiltrate the shadows, enough to deal with all accidents. This money is like picking it up for nothing. Another task also follows the same principle, searching for bear monster tribes in vast areas and observing whether they have mutated. If you walk to do this job, not to mention the possible dangers on the way, the effort it takes is enough for ordinary people to hesitate. But for Wu Wei, who can fly, is this also called a matter? Ha ha ha. Wu Wei felt proud in his heart and said, "This is called technological advantage. Okay, I've taken on both of these tasks." He replied confidently to Cerelian's White Claw. Cerelian's white-pawed face flashed with surprise, giving Wu Wei a deep glance and saying, "Don't force yourself, I'm waiting for your news. May your troubles dissipate. After speaking, I have to leave." Ah. Wu Wei stopped him and apologized, "You don't have any deposits or prepayments." Cerelian's white paws were taken aback and he said, "Deposit? I don't have money, my friends are all trustworthy people." You can rest assured. Alright, alright. Wu Wei apologized and said, you go well. Cerulean turned around with his white paws and left. Wu Wei escorted him outside the door. On the way back, Wu Wei saw the waitress Olympia and suddenly asked, how much salary can you earn in a day? Olympia was taken aback and answered honestly, 40 copper coins a day, what's wrong? Wu Wei received an unimaginable answer and immediately showed a shocked expression. It's okay, I can ask anything. Olympia rolled her eyes and said, don't think it's too low. My income is even higher than that of a regular employee. Not to mention tipping. Wu Wei only then realized that Azeroth's service industry still has the custom of tipping. His family has never given a copper tip since they moved in, so he is afraid that he will be treated as a stingy person by Olympia. How much money can a farmer earn in a year? Wu Wei conducted an economic survey. It depends on how you plant it. If you plant it for someone, you can only earn 80.90 silver coins per year. If it's your own land, you can earn nearly 2 gold coins if the harvest is good. The farmer can't say anything, anyway, the more land you have, the more you earn. Is that why a large portion of people earn less than 1 gold coin per year? He secretly calculated, so, the 2 jobs he took on were both about equal to 2 months' salary for an ordinary employee. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of money earned from risking one's life. Forget it, it's just a waste for me to pick it up. Whatever it is, you know quite a bit. After calculating his income, Wu Wei praised Olympia and took out 5 copper coins. This is a thank-you gift for answering questions. After giving a tip, he greeted his wife and children, then packed up and set off. He found a deserted place outside Oberdeen and his mind turned into a raven. This is his first time transforming into a raven, and the experience is different from that of a black panther and a giant bear. Wu Wei discovered that the world in the eyes of the crow and the world in the eyes of the human are completely different things. The scenery in the eyes of the crow is more colorful, and the gloomy black coast area is also lively and dynamic when viewed with the crow's eyes. The more objects are exposed to sunlight, the more prominent their brilliant colors become. So, is it because ravens can see light that human eyes cannot see? The light that cannot be seen by the human eye is either infrared or ultraviolet. When other light is strong, infrared light is suppressed, so what the crow sees is ultraviolet. Wu Wei looked left and right, then jumped and took a few steps, waiting for the freshness to weaken before flapping his wings and trying to fly. He familiarized himself in the air for a while and quickly mastered the skills of flying. Watching the scenery on the earth pass by quickly, he had to admit that flying is so enjoyable. Fast speed. You can walk in a straight line. How dangerous it is on land has nothing to do with me. It's so delicious. He adjusted his direction and flew gracefully towards the seaside, heading south along the coast, beginning to search for the monster his employer had described. After flying for about an hour, the giant beast in the employer's mouth caught the eye. The remains of a creature lying on its side, about 7 or 8 meters high, resembling a plesiosaur, towering on the beach. Wu Wei has never seen a whale with his own eyes on Earth, but the giant beast in front of him is definitely bigger than a whale. No wonder Darnassus is in a hurry. If this thing goes crazy, flipping over the wooden sailboats of this era is like playing. Accidentally, the route to Tada Hill was cut off. Wu Wei looked around. A few tens of meters away from the giant beast, a tribe of fish men is built on the beach. Some fish men holding rudimentary stone weapons patrol south and north along the beach, often passing by the giant beast. These fish people may appear slightly shorter than humans, but not many. They don't wear clothes and have striped or dotted patterns on their bodies, with colorful scales that sparkle beautifully in the sunlight. The giant beast has decayed, and from the fact that the fish man did not treat it as food, it is possible that the fish man did not eat decay. At least the fish man in this village did not eat decay. Wu Wei observed for a while and felt that he could completely fall behind the giant beast while the fisherman was not paying attention. As long as the giant beast blocks its own figure, the fish man will not discover itself. Then you can easily obtain a sample of the giant beast's tissue and fly away. But the problem now is, the giant beast has rotted. That smell, it smells 10 miles in the wind. Damn it, I didn't expect this to be a smelly job. He thought for a moment and realized that he had to use his hands to obtain the tissue samples. He had to put the tissue samples from the giant beast in his bag. In this way, both myself and my bag may not be able to take them. We need to get a long-handled tool and find a container. Wu Wei has some nostalgia for the plastic bags of the earth. With Azeroth's technology, there's no need to think about plastic. Or large leaves can also be used. Didn't ancient times use lotus leaves to wrap meat? Unfortunately, the cold and gloomy environment on the Black Coast makes it difficult for the trees growing here to grow into needles. Perhaps a metal bucket with a lid can be used. Well, the bucket should be small enough to fit in the backpack, otherwise the raven won't be able to carry the iron bucket. When Wu Wei transformed, he found that the items he carried seemed to follow the person into another space, and when he transformed back, none of them were missing. But the things in hand won't work. I don't know what the principle is. After much deliberation, he felt that he had figured out how to dare with this job, so he decided to collect the medicine first. When the time was almost up, he would return to Aberdeen to prepare the tools. In order to avoid employers worrying about money, he was already considerate and prepared to collect medicine for a day before completing the task, so he was not afraid of wasting time. I originally wanted to postpone it until tomorrow, so let's forget it. Tomorrow will definitely be even worse. He left the beach, flapping his wings, and flew into the forest, carefully searching for herbs. So, it wasn't until the sun set westward that Wu Wei finished picking herbs and returned to Aberdeen. He sent the herbs to the room and then borrowed an iron bucket from the hostess, Shaheen. "There's no iron bucket, is a wooden bucket okay?" said Shaheen. "The smell on the wooden barrel won't wash off." "Is it for sale?" Wu Wei asked. He doesn't want to pit someone with a bucket. "Can't we take it back after use?" "Why buy it?" "The key is that I can't get it back." Shashi smiled at the words and said, 50 copper coins, take them away." Having obtained the wooden barrel solved most of the problem. Wu Wei tried to put the wooden bucket into his backpack. Barely able to put it down, but the zipper definitely wouldn't fit. Then, he bought the most ordinary short sword from the dwarf and spent 90 copper coins. He tied these two things up in his backpack, left Aberdeen again, turned into a raven in a deserted place, and flew south along the coast. About an hour later, he returned to the stranded body of the plesiosaur. While the fisherman was not paying attention, we successfully obtained the tissue sample of the plesiosaur, and then it took about an hour to return to Aberdeen. The task was successfully completed. When he carried the stinky snake-necked dragon sample into Aberdeen, Wu Wei found that everyone was hiding far away. "This is not enough, we need to quickly hand over this stinky meat to the employer. Otherwise, people might have to say that I like to play with shit." But when he turned around in Aberdeen and found Cerelion's white claw, almost all the residents had smelled that foul smell. It's so social death. Cerelion Whiteclaw heard that this was Wu Wei's work achievement, so he quickly pinched his nose and led him to find his employer, Winnie Bragg. "You really did it. So fast. It's really beyond my expectations." Winnie Bragg looked very surprised. "I heard you're a young new druid, and I thought you couldn't do it. You would give up. How long have you been a druid? Who is the teacher?" "My teacher's name is Hecate Nightwind, ma'am. I haven't been a druid for long." As for the specific time, Wu Wei didn't want to say, otherwise everyone would have to look at him like a monster when they heard that he had only been a druid for a month. "Not long. You and your teacher must be excellent." Winnie Blake received this bucket of tissue samples and happily paid 12 silver coins. "Well done, I hope you continue to pay attention to the seaside and nearshore reefs. If there are other giant beast corpses, you can bring me the tissue samples and I will pay the same price. Are you addicted or something? However, for the sake of money, Wu Wei still agreed to her request. Anyway, the short sword and wooden barrel have already been bought back, and losing them would be a waste, wouldn't it? The next day, while picking herbs, Wu Wei coincidentally discovered a bear monster tribe north of Oberdeen. These bear monsters are irritable and restless, with red eyes. They attack all the living creatures they see, looking very dangerous. He didn't approach and turned his head to inform Cereline Whiteclaw of the news. Cereline took him to find his employer, Terence, but Terence did not immediately pay the reward. Instead, he asked Wu Wei to lead him to find the Xiong monster tribe before taking out 15 silver coins. These bear monsters have already threatened Oberdeen. Measures must be taken. Trenchies thought for a moment and said to Wu Wei, I still have a job here. Kill the bear monsters on drop orders and reduce their numbers. I will provide 20 silver coins for this job. What a joke. Wu Wei respectfully thanked Bumin and said, just do a reconnaissance for you. As a family member, can I lick the blood on the edge of your 20 silver coins? This is a whole bear monster tribe. In case of any accidents, what's the difference between poking a hornet's nest? Sorry, I refuse. You'd better hire someone else. Wu Wei didn't even give a reason and turned around and left. In the next few days, Wu Wei continued to collect herbs and help Winnie Blade collect samples of giant animal tissues. He flew around the surrounding forests and coasts with ease, not only collecting many herbs, but also easily collecting 5 more samples for Winnie Blade, earning a full 60 silver coins. In a moment, the family's wealth swelled to 134 silver coins and 20 copper coins. Being able to get rich so easily instantly ignited Wu Wei's enthusiasm. Early that morning, as he was about to leave, Cereline Whiteclaw approached him again and said, Elun is with you, my friend. I have brought you a new job. Upon hearing that there was money to make, Wu Wei quickly let Cereline in and said, Elun is with you. What kind of work, tell me quickly. So Cereline spoke with Whiteclaws. My friend Sanaria Greentree wants you to help capture a raging thistle bear alive. Those noble creatures are now like killing machines. Sanaria determines that they have a plague that is spreading rapidly. He wants to try to find a cure, so he needs an already infected thistle bear to experiment. He is willing to provide 17 silver coins as compensation. Wu Wei furrowed his brows and said, I won't do dangerous work. Catching thistles and bears alive is something like this. Let your friend hire someone else. Cereline shook his head with Whiteclaws and hesitated to speak. Sun Lan brewed a pot of tea and offered him some bought cookies to taste. This is a sincere person who has helped Wu Wei a lot. Without him, Wu Wei's family wouldn't be able to stand firm in Oberdeen so easily. Of course, we need to treat him well. Cereline took a sip of tea and suddenly asked, I see you've collected a lot of herbs. Are you planning to sell them or prepare your own potions? Do you understand alchemy? That's not it, I learned it from the Siendra Whisperer of Dorinar. Oh, it's her. Cereline nodded with white paws. It seemed that Dorianel's alchemist was also his acquaintance, and this guy really had a wide circle of friends. These night elves are not living in vain. For thousands or even thousands of years, they may not have known each other just because of this population of night elves. Perhaps you can ask Cereline if he can get the alchemy equipment. Wu Wei thought of this and went to the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com, where he told Sire Lion Whiteclaw about his lack of equipment and inability to refine medicine. Oberdeen doesn't have an alchemist or any alchemy equipment, but if you need it, I can entrust a friend to buy you a set from Danasis. Cereline's Whiteclaw said thoughtfully, if you have an alchemist, it will be convenient for everyone to buy various medicines. And you will definitely make money, the procurement of the Temple of Light and Sentinels can make you rich. After hearing this, Wu Wei regained his composure and said, that would be great. I wonder how much does it cost to buy a set of equipment. Wait for my message, I'll help you ask first. Asking for news from Dionysus is not a matter of day and a half, and Wu Wei can only patiently wait. During the waiting period, Wu Wei has been spending time collecting herbs. Their custom-made coat was also made during this period, and the family finally had warm clothes. After Hecate finished eating the peaches he brought to them, Wu Wei planted a peach tree in the wilderness to avoid people. He often gave birth to a few peaches to eat, which was very convenient. 3 days later, Cerulion's White Claw came back to his door and said, "A complete, brand new set of alchemy equipment made from the best materials is selling for up to 10 gold coins. But your luck is really good. My friend in Darnassus happened to know that there is an old set of alchemy equipment to deal with, and you can buy it for only 2 gold coins. Additionally, the priest Sandus Weaver Wind from this temple hopes to meet you once. He needs your help with some matters. 2 gold coins." Wu Wei looked at the 124 silver coins in his hand and fell into contemplation. So I'm still a poor person. Money is such a thing that comes and goes quickly. I will go and take a look at the temple priest's place, hoping he will have a good job for me. Chapter 9. Preparation for Takeoff. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Wu Wei, who was eager to make money, found the alone priest of Oberdeen. Sandus Weaving Wind early on. Sandus Weaving Wind was very happy to see him and said, "Blessings to you, Druid Wu Wei from another world. I have heard of your name for a long time, and Oberdeen is in need of talents like you." Wu Wei blushed greatly after being praised and touched his head humbly, saying, "You're just praising me. What do you mean by saying that Oberdeen is thriving with all its waste?" Wu Wei's soul of gossip suddenly began to burn fiercely. He didn't pay much attention to the history of the Black Coast when playing games, so he knows very little about it. Now that he wants to hang out here, it's always good to learn more information. Sandus Weaver Wind was taken aback for a moment and said, "Perhaps your coming day is still short, which is why you know nothing about this matter. In ancient times, more than 10,000 years ago, the Black Coast was originally very prosperous, but after the Well of Eternity exploded, the Black Coast became a wasteland." Do you know the Well of Eternity? Wu Wei nodded. Of course he knew the Well of Eternity. This thing is a supergiant nuclear fusion power plant with infinite energy, a small sun that can house people. It was precisely because of the influence of the Well of Eternity that night elves became independent from trolls and transformed into their current form. It is precisely because of the Well of Eternity that night elves invented magic, and because of magic, it attracted the Dark Titan Sargeras. Then Tyrande Stormrage, Malfurion Stormrage, and Illidan Stormrage, in order to prevent Sargeras from invading, exploded the Well of Eternity, shattering the originally large continent of Kalimdor into several pieces, leaving behind an endless sea and an insurmountable vortex. This event is known as the Sky Shatter. The collapse of heaven and earth created the current Azeroth and also led to future stories. Illidan Stormrage secretly hid several bottles of Well of Eternity water before the Well of Eternity exploded, and after a landslide, it collapsed into a small lake on the mountaintop of Hyjal, creating a new Well of Eternity. After being discovered, he was killed and silenced, and was eventually imprisoned by the Guardian Maiev. In order to hide the new Well of Eternity, the Night Elves and the Guardian Dragon of Azeroth planted an oak tree on the well, which became Azeroth's first world tree, Nordahir. Do you know? Oh, that's great, I won't say much more. Sanders Weaver continued. Later on, most of the surviving Night Elves lived in Grey Valley, and the Black Coast was deserted for a long time. Even though Oberdeen was built later, the Black Coast was still a remote area of the Night Elf Kingdom. During the Battle of Mount Hyjal, do you know about the Battle of Mount Hyjal? Wu Wei nodded again, and the Battle of Mount Hyjal happened a few years ago. The great demon Archimonde attempted to summon the Dark Titan Sargeras by using the second Well of Eternity under the World Tree Notisil. However, he was defeated and died, but dealt a heavy blow to Notisil, causing the Night Elves to lose their eternal life. Do you know? Let me continue. During the Battle of Mount Hyjal, everyone almost completely abandoned Oberdeen in order to defend Nordahir. The war ended and Nordahir was heavily damaged. Fandar Deer Helmet, in opposition to popular opinion, planted Tadahir on the island of Kael'dir near the Black Coast and built Darnassus on it as the new capital of the Night Elves. So, the Black Coast, located between Grey Valley and Tadahir, became important again. Oberdeen has become an important port for the Night Elves. That's right, it's only been over a year since we returned to Oberdeen. You can also see that there are only over 200 people in the entire Oberdeen, and there are dangers all around. We lack manpower, and I'm already exhausted about it. Good guy. Have you only been here for over a year? Can I also be counted as one of the first residents of Oberdeen when rounded to the nearest whole number? And this emerging and important port should be thriving. Why only 200 people have grown in just over a year? Do you still sound like you're about to die? Help me, Wu Wei. I promise I will not hesitate to reward you. Sandus Weaver looked at Wu Wei with bright eyes, with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Okay, what do you need me to do? Let's talk first. Wu Wei finished the other half of the sentence in his heart. As long as the money is in place, I will definitely help if I can. Thank you. Sandus Weaver Wind said contentedly, then I won't be polite. In the ruins of Basharn in the north, there are some demon claws running rampant, and those bad demons in Sartre are crazily absorbing magical energy, starting to become stronger and stronger. But on the small cliff to the west of the ruins, a temple was filled with strange blue light, making it impossible for those demons to enter. I want to commission you to investigate there. Find out what's going on with Blue Ray, and I'll give you 12 silver coins as compensation. After listening to Sandus Weaving Wind's words, Wu Wei closed his eyes with a headache. Brother, do you want to hear what you're saying? Some devil. Getting stronger. Is it not fragrant for me to live well with my wife and children? Not to mention it's just 12 silver coins, I won't go for 12,000 either. Kosandus Weaver is the head of the local temple and a prominent figure in Oberdeen. The Night Elves' territory is under the jurisdiction of the Parliament, and the Parliament is composed of the temple, druids, other extraordinary professions and powerful people. So such a temple priest can basically be treated as the leader of Oberdeen. Wu Wei can't afford to offend him. Besides, we're still waiting for the money to be used. So he spoke politely, I feel like my abilities are not enough to handle this job. Is there anything else I can help with? Yes. Sandus Weaving thought for a moment and said, in the ruins of Ami Salam to the north, the souls of ancient nobles are still using their magical weapons to harm passers-by. Go and bring me the magical relics in the ruins, and I will give you 15 silver coins as a reward. I can go fuck you. Undead souls. Magic weapon. Have I ever offended you before? I can't do this job either. Can I change jobs? Wu Wei gritted his teeth and asked. Sandus Weaving shook her head in disappointment at the words, but she still offered another job. The water in the Bichuan River to the north is getting dirty, and these polluted rivers are flowing directly into the sea. I'm afraid this will affect Aberdeen. The black bear monster living upstream of the river may be the source of pollution. Speaking, Sandus Weaver took out a test tube and said, take this test tube and go to the section of the river near the Blackwood Bear tribe to get some river water samples. 14 silver coins. Wu Wei was taken aback and said, go to the river to get a sample. Yes, Sandus Weaver nodded. Just taking samples. Yes. How many more times do you want me to say it? Don't you want to accept this job? I took it. Wu Wei reached out and took the test tube. It would be great if this kind of money-picking activity could be taken out early, it must be hidden and hidden. You're despicable. Great. Sandus Weaver's expression softened. You can set off now. Okay. Wu Wei turned around and left. Passing through Oberdeen, Wu Wei was about to take a water sample and pick some herbs by the way, when an enchanting female sentry with 2 big fried dough twists braids stopped him suddenly. Blessing you. You must be the druid Wu Wei from the other world. I'm Garinda Nayan. I heard you're looking for some work to do, and I happen to need someone to help me with something. Do you have time now? Are you making money again? Wu Wei's eyes lit up and he said, if you have time, please explain it in detail. Do you know about the owl beast? Gorindanean said, these mysterious creatures have a gentle personality and rarely appear in front of people, but recently, we have received several reports of being attacked by the owl beast in the east. According to the report, those owls gathered around a red crystal in the eastern mountains. No one knows what that crystal is, nor does anyone know if it really exists. I heard that you are particularly good at reconnaissance, so I want you to find that crystal and those owl beasts, and tell me everything you see. I can pay you 18 silver coins for this. Oh. 18 silver coins. And this good thing. This matter is up to me. Wu Wei immediately agreed. He is certainly not because of Garinda Nashan's seductive figure. The Owl Beast Society spell, offering a high price of 18 silver coins is reasonable. But if it's just reconnaissance. I'm flying in the sky, you guys jump up and bite me, the more money picking activities come, the better. Wu Wei, who was eager to make money, did not delay and immediately left Oberdeen, turning into a raven in an empty corner and flying towards the Bichuan River. The Bichuan River is not a nearby location. Wu Wei flew while paying attention to the herbs in the field, walking and stopping, and it took several hours to arrive. Wu Wei didn't know exactly how much time had passed, but the sun had already tilted towards the western half of the sky. It seems that we must speed up, otherwise we won't be able to rush back to Oberdeen before dark. It's really troublesome to time without a watch. But you still have to save money to buy alchemy equipment, just endure it. He climbed up the Bichuan River and spent about an hour to find the Blackwood Bear monster tribe. Taking advantage of the Blackwood Bear monster's lack of attention, he took a water sample from the nearby waters. Then he immediately began searching for the red crystal. This is already the foot of the eastern mountain range on the Black Coast, northeast of Oberdeen. Sentinel Gorindanean said that the red crystal is to the east of Oberdeen, so I should be able to find the crystal by following the mountains all the way south. That thing is surrounded by some owl beasts, it should be very conspicuous, so he flew high into the air and began searching along the mountains. This time, in order to save time, although he still went to pick herbs, he did not deliberately search for them. Even so, until the sun sank towards the sea, he still couldn't find the red crystal. This task is a bit complicated. Indeed, there is no easy money to earn in the world. Wu Wei can only remember the current location and return to Oberdeen. He handed the water sample to Sandus Weaving Wind, and Sandus Weaving Wind immediately gave 14 silver coins to Wu Wei. Oh, this guy trusts me a lot, he can handle it. Wu happily took the money home. The next day, just as it was dawn, Wu Wei set off to continue searching for the red crystal. He went straight back to the location he found yesterday and continued to search south carefully. I searched for almost noon in one breath and still found nothing. Is the red crystal just a rumor? Or did I miss it while searching? Wu estimated that his position was already very southwest of Oberdeen, and it was meaningless to continue south. Therefore, he decisively changed direction and searched north again. This time he looked very carefully and often fell down to look at some trees that blocked his view, which was when he found the red crystal in a valley. This crystal is about 2 people tall, with a blood-red color all over its body, and looks very eerie. Some owl beasts are gathering around the crystal, walking back and forth like sleepwalking. Having determined the location of the crystal, Wu Wei finally breathed a sigh of relief and immediately reported back to Oberdeen. Sentinel Gorindanean was very surprised when he heard his report and said, "Did you find this crystal so quickly in the vast mountains?" Wu Wei thought to himself, well, it usually takes about a day for most people to walk to the eastern mountains, and then cross the mountains and aimlessly search for a crystal. It's not uncommon to find it for a month. I completed the task so quickly, others either thought I was lying or thought I had some special ability. No, I can't attract others' attention. If I were found to have the ability to fly, I wouldn't be able to cheat money so easily. Perhaps I'm lucky. Wu Wei quickly made up for it. I climbed freely into the mountain and somehow found that crystal. After a moment of thought, Gorinda Nashion realized that the person in front of him was a druid. Loyal elders. How could you lie and deceive me with these 18 silver coins? Especially this kind of lie that can be exposed quickly. Alright, this is your reward. Gorinda Nashi handed the money to Wu Wei. Wu happily accepted 18 silver coins, and the family's wealth expanded to 152 silver coins and 60 copper coins. If you have time, I want to continue hiring you, continued Gorinda Nayan. Yo. Coming back to life. Wu Wei was overjoyed and said, I have time. I want to figure out the composition of that crystal. Gorinda Nayan handed Wu Wei a glass test tube. Use this to hold some water from the moon well, pour it on the crystal, and see what happens. I will give you 9 silver coins as a reward. 9 silver coins. It's a bit less. But I already know the place, just pour some water, it shouldn't take much time. No compensation. Okay, I'll take on this job. Gorinda Nashian nodded and said, I hope you are careful. Although there are usually no unexpected events, the eastern side of the mountain is Feywood Forest. If the crystal is related to that, it could be very dangerous. Upon hearing this, Wu Wei felt a sudden surge in his heart. Big sister, can you stop panting when you speak? If you had said that earlier, I wouldn't have taken on this job. Kimu has become a boat, regretting it again would be a bit unsightly. Forget it, I turned into a raven and threw a test tube in my mouth, simulating a plane dropping a bomb. After throwing it, I left. Even if there was danger, it couldn't catch up with me. After careful consideration, Wu Wei bid farewell to Gorinda Nashi and went to the moon well to fetch water. The water from the moon well is certainly not taken casually. These magic water can restore people's physical strength and energy. If you take it at will, it will be taken away. His mother. The sentry guarding the moon well inquired about Wu Wei's intentions and, upon hearing that he was working for Gorinda Nashi, happily asked him to fetch a test tube well water. Wu Wei put the well water in his backpack, left Oberdeen, and turned into a raven flying towards the red crystal in a deserted place. Flying to the vicinity of the red crystal, Wu Wei found a safe place to land, then took out a test tube filled with water from the moon well, placed it on the ground, transformed into a raven again, and picked up the test tube. He flashed past the red crystal and threw the test tube onto the crystal. The test tube shattered in response, and the water from the moon well flowed down the red crystal. The red crystal trembled and emitted blood, causing the owls to become restless and restless. Wu Wei was afraid of any danger and quickly flew away. He originally wanted to go back directly to collect the reward, but looking at the strange appearance of the red crystal, he couldn't help but be curious, so he circled around the red crystal from a distance, wanting to see the subsequent changes. After a while, the crystal finally calmed down, and its color changed from blood red to white transparent, even the owls gradually dispersed. Wu Wei approached the crystal cautiously and, upon discovering that there was no danger, began to study the crystal. He circled around the crystal, looking at what seemed to be inside, and then leaned in to take a look. Half of the jawbone with teeth was sealed in a crystal, surrounded by some white broken bones. This is definitely not a natural crystal. Find the book Garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com, otherwise there won't be anything sealed inside. I don't know whose chin it is, but it looks like a human in shape and size. If I take it back, will there be a prize? Wu Wei became interested and turned into a giant bear, holding onto a large stone and smashing it onto it. However, even though the stone was shattered, it did not harm the crystal at all. He reverted back to human form and cast the druid spell taught to him by the Hecate Night Wind. Moonlight, Starfire, and Anger were repeatedly smashed down, but the crystal remained unchanged. Stop it, withdraw. Wu Wei saw that he had no choice but to take the crystal and immediately turned into a raven and returned to Oberdeen. It's still important to receive the money, what's the difference with a broken crystal? Returning to Oberdeen, Wu Wei smoothly received 9 silver coins from Go Linda Nashi An and then picked up the broken bones in the crystal with her. Gorinda Nashian suddenly became serious. This information is very important. I think we should report it to Darnassus and have them send someone to handle it. I have tried brute force and magic, but they cannot shake the crystal at all, otherwise I will take out the bone. Wu Wei rubbed his hands and said, "Look, can you give me some reward for such important information? Not to be damaged." Gorinda Nashian nodded earnestly, "Your efforts are worthy of reward." After speaking, he took out 17 silver coins and handed them to Wu Wei. "I'll go, it's more than pouring water on the crystal." Wu was overjoyed and quickly received the money. As for why he gave so much money and what secrets were inside, Wu Wei didn't care. In the following period of time, Wu Wei tried his best to find some jobs that were not dangerous to him, and finally increased his family assets to 2 gold coins and 9 silver coins. He immediately found Cerulion's white claw and secured the set of alchemy equipment. The day of counting money until my hands twitch is finally coming. Chapter 10. Selling Life for Money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A rainstorm hit Oberdeen. According to the hostess Shaheen, rainstorm is a frequent guest of Oberdeen. The time Wu Wei came here has been a rare rain-free period in a year. The rainstorm made the temperature in Oberdeen reach a new low. Thanks to getting back the custom-made clothes a few days ago, otherwise the whole family would have been frozen again. Influenced by the rainstorm, Wu Wei didn't go out, which was regarded as a half-day leisure. At noon, the family booked a big meal from the hotel and had a good meal. The so-called feast is actually a roasted chicken, a plate of fried fish, a common large crab at the Aberdeen beach, a vegetable soup, and a white bread with cream and jam. That's all. It cost the whole family 4 silver coins. The taste is actually just average, without the rich seasoning of the earth or the skilled chefs. The only thing that can be praised is the authentic and pure natural ingredients, especially the big crab. Wu Wei believes that the taste must surpass the famous king crab on earth. No nuclear contaminated water. The family had a very happy meal. They have been living in poverty for too long since coming to Azeroth. A family of 3 plumped up their stomachs and lay down on the bed after finishing their meal, enjoying themselves. When I woke up from sleep, the rain had already stopped, and the sun in the west leaked half of my face from the clouds, painting the entire Oberdeen with a layer of golden light. Half of the day had already passed, and Wu Wei couldn't go back to work. With nothing to do, he ran to the dwarves. Perhaps living for too long, the night elves always appear calm and composed, making it difficult to make friends. The dwarves of the exploration team did not go out either. They were taking advantage of this rare leisure time to prepare dinner, and it was evident that they were also thinking of having a big meal. Wu Wei. Kudram and Sergram Hammers grabbed Wu Wei and said, "Stay here tonight, let's have a good drink." Wu Wei readily agreed. In the evening, he had the hotel chef cook a few crabs to add vegetables to the dwarves. A dwarf named Gou Bobulup was overjoyed and said, "Wu Wei. You are really my good brother. How do you know that I have the best bite?" This Gubwa La Plata is drinking continuously with Wu Wei, but Wu Wei may have strengthened his physique during his travels, and when drinking alcohol, he has a great momentum of not pouring 1,000 cups. In a moment, Gubwa Brap poured himself to the ground, causing the other dwarves to burst into laughter. They drank until the middle of the month when a female dwarf named Holly came to Wu Wei with a glass and said, "Your name has been ringing in the ears lately. I heard that you have solved a lot of trouble for the night elves. I have an explorer who hasn't heard from me for a long time. Can you help me go see him? I'll give you 20 silver coins as a reward. Is there money to earn?" Wu Wei's spirit was instantly shaken. You know, He only has 2 silver coins left in his pocket now. Finding someone. I'm best at this. He patted his chest and said, what's the specific situation? Where can I help you find him? Ha ha ha. Holly laughed happily and said, his name is Remtaville. Digging through the ruins of the Sword of Dominance. There are some Nagas nearby, and recently some crazy black-robed people have come, so I'm a bit worried about him. Naga. A crazy black-robed person. This doesn't sound very safe. Wu Wei restrained his smile and said, what kind of place is that Lord's sword? Although he has played World of Warcraft, he cannot know every corner of Azeroth like the back of his hand. Are you saying that? Holly didn't know the seriousness of the situation yet. She happily introduced to Wu Wei, that's an ancient relic. In the past, it might have been a temple of night elves. The main body is a huge statue that stands over 10 meters high. The statue has a face that looks like a snail's shell, with a giant sword inserted into its head, which looks like a Titan relic. Let me wipe it. Wu Wei heard the SAN value go crazy. A face like a snail shell. Inserting a giant sword that looks like a Titan artifact. Can't he be an ancient god? That can't be digging, Bao Yu. Is the crazy black-robed person the Twilight Hammer? I don't want my own life anymore. Sorry, I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do these days. Wu Wei's already low alcohol content suddenly disappeared, and he turned around and left without any attachment to the 20 silver coins. Why are there so many dangerous places on this black coast? In the future, we need to stay away from the south. The next day, Wu Wei, who couldn't find a job, continued to collect herbs and soon couldn't even pay for his room. If I don't have the alchemy equipment yet, I'll have to rely on selling herbs to make a living. Wu Wei thought anxiously. But when he returned to the hotel in the evening, Sun Lan told him that Sandus Weaver Wind, the priest of the Oberdeen Moon Temple, had sent someone to find him, as if it was something very important. Wu Wei's heart was filled with joy, and the business came to his doorstep. He found Sandus Weaving Wind in the temple and said, "Bless you, priest. I heard you're looking for me." "Blessing you, Wu Wei, I am indeed looking for you," Sandus Weaving Wind said. "These days you have proven your strength, but before getting to the point, I still want to ask about your strengths. As a druid, are you better at transforming, using spells to strike enemies, or knowing how to heal the wounded? It is understandable for employers to want to know the abilities of their employees, so Wu Wei was honest and said, "I am better at transformation. Of course I am good at it. There are 5 different forms that can be called masters." To avoid missing out on job opportunities due to being biased towards certain subjects, he added, "I am also capable of spells and healing, and my level is not bad." The talent and aptitude he gained through time travel enable him to learn everything quickly, without the need to make choices among various spells, making him an all-around person. Where is a druid who knows everything? Sandus Weaving only saw him talking big and then asked, "In terms of transformation, what are you good at becoming?" "Giant bear and black panther." Wu Wei concealed the other 3 forms as usual. 2 forms. "It's unbelievable, you're so young, you're such an excellent druid." Sandy Weaver's face showed surprise, nodding with satisfaction, and then continued with a somewhat serious expression, "Can I rely on you? Or are you willing to contribute to Oberdeen?" Wu Wei's heart sank and he said, "This opening doesn't sound like a good thing. You can't promise casually, so as not to fall into the ditch. May I ask what happened?" He looked at Sandus Weaving's face. Sure enough, disappointment flashed across Sandus Weaver's face and he said, "Okay, then I'll tell you." Sandus Weaver turned his head and looked outside the temple. "Many things have happened in Oberdeen recently, and you have also been involved. The thistle bear in the forest has fallen ill, a bear monster tribe in the north has also been infected. The council has decided to completely remove these threats and carry out a cleanup operation around Oberdeen." Sandus Weaving Wind withdrew his gaze and looked at Wu Wei. "We need your help as a druid. Especially in cleaning up the bear monster tribe, we are understaffed. Don't worry about safety, Saralin, the Sentinels, and other combat-capable residents of Oberdeen will all participate in this operation. And if you are willing to take action, you will receive 50 silver coins as a reward. 50 silver coins. Do you want to do it or not? Wu Wei was lost in thought. I can't even afford to pay for the room right now, 50 silver coins are really tempting. So many people together, perhaps there won't be any danger. After careful consideration, he finally couldn't resist the temptation of money and said, okay, I did it. For a happy life, earn more money. Sandy Weaving smiled contentedly and said, come and gather here early tomorrow morning. Wu Wei returned to the hotel and, after some thought, told Sun Lan about it to avoid worrying about any rumors. So many people together, there won't be any danger. Besides, you don't know me yet. If there's really a problem, I'll definitely be the first to run. Sun Lan nodded but remained silent. The next morning, Wu Wei packed his things and was about to leave, but when he turned around, he saw that Sun Lan was also fully armed. I'll go with you. Those night elves are always outsiders and unreliable. Sun Lan's attitude was resolute. What should I do with that child? Wu Wei was a bit indecisive about not letting Sun Lan follow. The child should play, eat, sleep, and what else should he do? I have instructed Shashi to watch him not run around, it's okay. Sun Lan smiled and said, you let me go. I've been holding it in the hotel for half a month now, and it's time to go out and let out. Besides, one more person will receive an extra amount of money. When you go over, you can ask that Sandis, how much money can I give you? I'm sure I haven't given you much, but I can't give you too little, can I? During this period of time, Wu Wei did not let Sun Lan go out. Whoever's wife is worried about it, and there are so many dangers outside. What should we do if we are injured? Since Sun Lan was feeling flustered at this moment, Wu Wei, considering the large number of people in the team and the low risk, softened his heart and took her to the temple together. Outside the temple, a group of night elves are sharpening their weapons and horses. It's really a fierce battle. These night elves basically have one night blade leopard as their mount. Oh, Lao Wu, this thing is so handsome. No matter where you go, you don't have to walk on your own legs. Can we get one? Sun Lan looked at the majestic night blade leopard and almost drooled. Probably enough. Wu Wei shook his head and said, I've heard before that the night blade leopard had an alliance with the night elves, and that's why they rode it. We too, they may not recognize us. After thinking for a moment, he added, to put it 10,000 steps back, even if you let the rider ride, buying one of these things will definitely not be cheap. And they still eat meat. Look at this big guy. At our family's economic level, people are almost unable to afford to raise them, and they still keep night blade leopards. This thing is just like Azeroth's supercar. Most people can't afford it, and what they can afford may not necessarily be able to afford it. How many people feel heartbroken for half a day after getting oily? The two of them walked into the crowd while chatting, greeting those they knew. After greeting, Wu Wei took Sun Lan to find the priest Sandis Weaving Wind and said, Elun is with you, priest. This is my wife Sun Lan, a female hunter under Tatahir, and she also wants to contribute to Oberdeen. In terms of compensation, you can watch and give it to me. Anyway, I'm sorry for missing you. Sandis Weaving smiled and said, blessing your family, Wu Wei. The reward is 20 silver coins, is that okay? Then he turned to Sun Lan and said, I know you, Sun Lan. You are an excellent hunter. On your first day in Oberdeen, you hunted a bear. You can be with the Sentinel troops and be responsible for remote support. 20 silver coins. There are still quite a few. The price was somewhat unexpected for Wu Wei and Sun Lan, as Wu Wei's work remuneration so far has been below 20. Okay, priest, I'm willing to act with the Sentinels. Sun Lan nodded and twisted her around Wu Wei's waist. Tell me, have you kept your private money? How come I can even earn 20 silver, but you, a druid, only have a dozen or so silver each time? I can't tell that Wu Wei is quite dark about you. Do you still have half of the private money left behind? Ah. It hurts. Wu Wei screamed, what the hell do I hide my private money? Where do I spend it? People who have worked for me are almost there. Go and ask. Anyway, be honest with me. Sun Lan rolled her eyes. Sandus Weaving ignored their commotion and began pre-war mobilization. An evil disease is spreading on the Black Coast. In the north of Oberdeen, a tribe of sick bear monsters appeared, indiscriminately attacking all life and completely falling. In addition, the thistle bears in the forests around us have also shown the same symptoms. Unfortunately, we do not have the means to cure them. But if we let this go unchecked, all the creatures on the Black Coast may be doomed. So we must prevent the disease from continuing to spread and save other innocent animals. The way is to eliminate all infected individuals while there is still time. Sandus Weaving Wind said this, glanced around in the crowd, saw no objections, and then continued. Today, we will first go to the north to clear the infected bear monster tribe, then turn east, then turn south, and finally turn west, walking around the outskirts of Oberdeen to clean up other infected animals. After confirming that everyone understood, he began to introduce the personnel involved in the action. The participants in this operation include Barisa's Moonlight Shadow, Orlandaria Nightsong, Cerulean White Claw, and Wu Wei, Garinda Nayan, Eliza Starwind, Sun Lan, Trenchies, Basil Shadowstrike, and me. Every time a name is mentioned, the owner of the name will take a step forward and greet everyone. Wu Wei realized that these names were all grouped together according to their abilities, and those arranged together with him should all be druids. Those lined up with Sun Lan were all sentinels and female hunters. Trenchies was now covered in iron armor, clearly a warrior. Basil's shadow strikes his waist and hangs 2 daggers, indicating that he is a thief, or rather a detective, and Sandus Weaving is a Lun's priest, as the game suggests. He is actually a priest. Of course, there are differences between the priests of night elves and humans. Zhaoshuyuan.com In the night elves, priests are usually proficient in military affairs and also serve as military leaders. Traditional priestesses are even better at archery. However, looking at the red crystal single-handed hammer in Sandus Weaver's hand, he should be more focused on casting spells. Sure enough, after everyone got to know each other, Sandus Weaving continued. This operation will be under my command. The operational plan is as follows. Wu Wei and Basil shadow strike 2 people, sneaking into the bear monster camp in advance, searching for potential spellcasters or elites in the camp. When the battle begins, they aim to kill them with 1 strike. The large army of Terrence and Cerulean White Claw is in front, with Garinda Nayan, Eliza Starwind, and Sunlan to their left, while Orlandaria Nightsong, Barisa's Moonlight, and I are in the right, forming a triangular formation and quietly approaching the bear monster tribe. Then, the attack was initiated by Garinda Nayan, Eliza Starwind, and Sunlan. Terrence and Cerulean's White Claws formed a defensive line to block the bear monster's attack, while I, Orlandaria Nightsong, and Barisa's Moonlight were responsible for healing and supporting. After Wu Wei and Basil successfully assassinated the bear monster, they immediately teamed up with the main army to attack it. After listening to the battle plan, everyone made a loud promise and no one raised any objections. Wu Wei is not familiar with military affairs and doesn't know if Sandus Weaving's combat plan is professional, but it definitely sounds quite similar. It seems that the only issue is everyone's cooperation and execution ability. However, less than 2 years after the Battle of Mount Hyjal, the Night Elves should have very rich practical combat experience, right? Sandus immediately announced his departure, and everyone stepped onto the Night Blade Leopard. Wu Wei rode with Cerulean's White Claw, and Sun Lan rode with Garinda Nashi. Together, everyone rushed towards the north.